In front it comes. Blocked. P.O. Joseph goes back to Shen. Turned. Matthew Joseph. He scores! His brother's going to get an assist on his goal. Oh, he scores! Neighbors from the far wall at the hash marks. Rips a beauty to the net. Broberg takes it down along the wing. Drags into the middle. Down low. They shoot. They score! They get the puck to Kapanen. Drives the middle. Score! Cappy puts the St. Louis Blues on top 4-3. And that'll do it. You can bring out the Zamboni. The Blues beat the Carolina Hurricanes 4-3.
Carolina Hurricanes go down, and the Blues make it a 2-win homestand with one more to go on Tuesday. Happy Monday, and welcome into BK and Ferrario, everyone, here on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you. That voice you heard was the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, and he's standing right next to us. He's filling in today as BK is out. He filled in on the morning show. Tanner is probably still celebrating that Illinois victory over the weekend, so Curbs out of the bullpen.
I have the over-under in terms of us going off the rails at 3.5.
Oh, I'd take the over.
So 3.5 out of, what do we have, a 3-hour show?
Yeah.
3-hour show, 4 segments, 3 times 12, 4, that's 12. So 3.5, so 4 segments out of the 12, we go off the rails.
You could have set that at 11.
Does this count already?
Yeah, this counts
Probably.
already.
No, this can't count already. I mean, we're just setting the table.
Well, setting the table off the rails.
You guys think you're going to be able to stay on the rails more than 2 times an hour?
No, I've done this with Curbs. I've hosted pregames with Curbs, and we do a 6:15 show, and I've never been able to hit the pregame out time correctly because we get off the rails so much.
Things come into my head. It's not my fault. It's the way I was designed.
He'll get there at some point. Well, Curbs, to stay on the rails early on, the Blues, an impressive win once again. A come from behind, if you want to call it that, because Carolina scored first, but St. Louis, a different team from the first to second period. And we've seen now every single new face that has joined the Blues this season get on the point sheet. In that game against the Carolina Hurricanes, Dylan Holloway picks up a goal. P.O. Joseph picks up an assist. Matthew Joseph picks up a goal. You're seeing the impact of all of these offseason additions that Doug Armstrong has brought to the St. Louis Blues, helping this team pick up 4 wins early on. And I was looking at this over the weekend because going back to Doug Armstrong comment, when training camp started, he said that this is the deepest roster that the Blues have had since that 2011, 2010, 2012 stretch.
It is. It's deep in the sense that the coach has options. And now health, as we'll talk about a little later on, is going to play a role in that. But having options is one thing. Giving those options an opportunity is another. And that is what the Blues are doing right now. One of the reasons you're seeing them be impactful is they're giving them a chance to be productive. Broberg is going out there every regular shift. Holloway has been anywhere from the top line to the second line to the third line, and he was effective in his top 2 line roles, did his job there. They get healthy, or at least they get the player back in Brandon Saad, so that shifts the lineup down. Now that guy that has the confidence in the top 6 is playing on the third line with that kind of confidence. Matthew Joseph comes in, playing with the captain, Braden Shen. He knows he's playing with a Stanley Cup champion. He knows he's playing with the captain. He knows that, hey, I don't just want to be a checking guy that's going to get 9-10 minutes a game. They're forcing the play, and they're finding a way to be effective. They were the best line for the Blues in that last game. It's giving these players the opportunity to do it. Zach Bolduc is another example here. Now, he has not jumped off the score sheet. He hasn't hurt you either in a lot of ways, too. So he's getting that opportunity to continue to grow and be in that role. Now, again, lineup changes could force a few things when certain guys come back in. But having said that, they're giving them the opportunity, and it's happening.
Well, and here's the part for me that really stuck out. And not to compare it to the same season, because as we know, things can be very different. But that 2011-2012 season, Curbs, Doug Armstrong brings in Jason Arnott, a veteran that they're wanting to come in and influence the younger players. They had 6 players the Blues did that were under the age of 25. Right. Jamie Langenbrunner comes in, an impactful player, not just for the Blues, but for those younger players. You also bring in Brian Elliott. You bring in a Scott Nickel. But the previous season was when Doug made that big trade for 2 players under the age of 25 in Kevin Shattenkirk and Chris Stewart. The 2011-2012 season was the start of that run where the Blues were making the playoffs with the exception of that one season all the way up until they won the Stanley Cup. It does feel a little similar in the sense that the Blues go off into the offseason, bring in veteran presence. Again, not Langenbrunner and Jason Arnott, who are on the back end of their career, but you bring in a Matthew Joseph, who has been around the block a few times. You bring in Ryan Suter, who's over 1,400 games. Radek Faksa, who's been a part of winning organizations with the Dallas Stars. That feels the same sense that the Blues had this season, to where you're bringing in some veterans that can help the 25 and under players.
I'm going to give some credit here to this comment to Howard Balzer, the H-man, who, I mean, shoot, we're talking 15, 20 years ago, said this on the air. He was wondering why NFL teams, instead of drafting in, say, the 3rd or 4th or 5th round, why don't they target players that have had a year or two's worth of development and seasoning with a team, might be ready to break in, right, and go, and be ready to go rather than always trying to pick and then move a draft pick, because it takes time for draft picks to get seasoned.
Right.
And it made sense. One of the things Doug Armstrong did this with one of his very first trades in acquiring Matt D'Agostini, is he brought in a guy that was already ready to play in the NHL, and he traded a 2nd-round pick that never really did play much in the NHL in the end. And this is what he's done. He did this with the Shattenkirk deal. He's done this now, obviously, with the offer sheets to Broberg. He's doing it with bringing in the Joseph brothers. And it's just advancing a process and doing so without blocking the progress and the opportunity of the players you still need to be developing.
That opens the window, though, doesn't it? It opens the window going from 2 seasons back-to-back where you had good stretches, but you didn't get the taste of the postseason.
Does it open it up? Sure, yeah. Let's say, yeah. I think that's a fair way to say it,
because that's that 11-12 season.
Yeah, it definitely opens the window more. Where, you know, if how far open?
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be up to the players to determine. But it definitely opens the window more, because you're now moving forward with players that can play, that can create some excitement, that can build something good, versus players that you know are not ready to go, but you have to play them.
Yeah.
You know, and now in doing what they've done, they don't have to play anybody that's not ready. A Zachary Bolduc could go back down to Springfield, and it's not a problem, right? So, yeah, I definitely think by doing this, you've started to open that window of competitiveness again, and eventually, when you're ready and you get that last piece, then it's fully open championship window.
Well, and to your point, Curbs, of the readiness for the players, you don't have to force guys who are dinged up into the lineup. Toropchenko didn't play Saturday. They said they wanted to make sure he was 100%. Letty hasn't played a couple of games since the Minnesota Wild, making sure he's 100%. But
Sundqvist
as well.
You can take your time
Texier
with Sundqvist. Texier as well.
So this is the part I wanted to get to, because the Blues do have some tough decisions that are on the horizon, Curbs, because Texier skating today on the 4th line with Faksa and Kapanen. Sundqvist has been inching closer and closer to being ready. Letty's not skating, so the defense kind of remains intact. But when you start activating these players, this is where the tough decisions come into play of who goes down if you send people down.
They're not hard decisions. So the first thing you have to look at is how are guys playing, how are guys performing, and you assess that. Can you take a guy out of a lineup and give somebody else a chance? The bottom line is the way this has been structured is it's simply asset management. Who can go down potentially to free up roster space without risking any of your depth or any of the management or any of your roster management here? So in a situation like, let's just play a scenario out here, and I'm not saying he deserves to go. I'm just saying play a scenario out here. If Zachary Bolduc were to go down to the minors, right?
Yeah.
If Zachary Bolduc were to go down to the minors, it's not because he didn't earn it or he's played poorly. He's been in a top 6 role on a regular basis for 6 games, and you're 4-2. It's that you have asset management. I'm not willing to maybe lose a guy on waivers. Now, the flip side of that is maybe you are. Maybe you're willing to say, okay, I got enough to fill in for a Walker, for a Toropchenko, a Kapanen, a whomever, okay? And somebody goes on waivers, and if you lose them, you lose them. But you don't have to do that. So to me, sometimes these decisions are made for you, you know, and frankly, very easily, One injury in practice today or one injury tomorrow against the Winnipeg Jets, and those decisions made even easier.
Yeah. Well, you get close with Texier again. Matt DeFrank's reporting that Texier skating on the fourth line with Radek Faksa and Kasperi Kapanen. Sundqvist is skating on the extra line with Toropchenko and Walker, and Nick Leddy not skating once again, still day-to-day, according to Drew Bannister with the Blues defenseman. He's Chris Kerber. Graham Francis is helping us out today as well. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get more into the Blues a little bit later on, and we're going to rank the top 5 moves of Doug Armstrong's career, and this is going to be a tough list.
With the Blues.
With the Blues, yes. Not just not the Dallas Stars, with the Blues. This is going to be a tough one, though, after the play of Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. But coming up next, Mizzou, a huge victory over the weekend, a comeback win for Brady Cook and the Missouri Tigers against Auburn. Howard Richards, the color analyst on the broadcast side, he's going to join us next here on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care who are making people comfortable since 1926. You hear me tell the stories all the time about how I've been using Classic Air Care since 2016. My dad's been using them since he purchased his second home with our family. That's how long they've been in the Ferrario family, but there's so much more to Classic Air Care, like the Feel the Love event that they just participated in over the weekend. It was in partnership with Lennox, where they installed new HVAC system at no cost for 3 local families in need. In addition, plumbers installed a water heater, and all of that was at no charge for their home. And this is what Classic Air Care is all about. And of course, they give you incredible customer service, knowledgeable technicians that are coming out, whether it's for maintenance agreements to check your HVAC system or installing a new one, but to care about the community. And these applications are always open. So if you know of a family that's in need, you can apply for one of these, the Feel the Love program, at classicaircare.com/about Feel the Love program. Sign up for their maintenance agreement. Check out their financing options for purchasing a new HVAC system. All of it at Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Cook over the middle, pulled in first down at the 40-yard line. Mookie Cooper inside the 30, Cooper inside the 20, stumbling, keeping his feet, and finally tackled inside the 5. They run the ball off the right side and into the end zone. Marcus Carroll for a huge touchdown. Gonna run it again straight ahead, bouncing off of a tap. There's Roberts into the end zone. Touchdown, Missouri. Pass over the middle, knocked away, incomplete. Missouri takes over on downs.
We said from the onset, this is a show-me type game. Who are you, Missouri? What are you, and what's in store?
15 points in the fourth quarter as their quarterback Brady Cook returns from the hospital and leads his team to a victory over the Auburn Tigers. That audio was courtesy of the ESPN broadcast. Along with Chris Kerber, I'm Alex Ferrario, Grant Francis as well. After a 21-17 victory, the Missouri Tigers move to 6-1 on the season. And to talk about this win, we welcome in one of the greats. He's the color analyst for the Missouri Tigers. He is Howard Richards. Howard, it is great to talk with you as always. I have to imagine in the amount of years that you've been calling Missouri football, it has to be one at the top of the charts for you.
Yeah, no doubt, guys. First of all, good morning. Great to be with you today. It's one of those games that you hope going into the game that your team plays well. First and foremost, win or lose. Missouri, to me, has not played its best all season long. And that's been a bit of a concern, yet they've been able to find a way to win games. You know, throughout the Texas A&M game, which was an embarrassment, it was a disaster. And, you know, even playing against some of the lesser opponents, if you will, earlier in the season, the non-conference games, they weren't necessarily at their best. But, you know, when Missouri played Vanderbilt, of course, everyone was shocked that the game was so close, right? You know, it was an overtime game. And I said going into that game, this is a different Vanderbilt team, mainly because of the transfer portal. They've been able to go out and get the players that they've needed. And this is across the entire landscape of college football. More and more teams are doing this. This is why you're seeing a lot more parity, if you will, not just the SEC, but in all of really the major college now, I'd say the Power Four teams, Power Four conferences rather. This is what you're seeing. And come playoff time, you're going to see teams with one, maybe two losses, you know, in their portfolio, just because of the nature of you know, the way the schedule falls. An undefeated team, I don't think you're going to see that in quite a while.
Howard, first off, thanks again for taking the time with us this morning. I love individual sports moments, and I always try to hesitate people and get them to try not to just make more of one moment than it truly is, because sometimes a moment is just what it is. When you're in a broadcast booth and Brady Cook returns to the field, did you see him coming on, or was it the crowd noticing and kind of cheering that drew your attention to it?
I happened to look down and see Brady warming up. And, you know, our play-by-play announcer, Mike Kelly, you know, your friend and mine, had not noticed yet. So I'm trying to get Mike's attention and pointing down the field, hey, Brady, I'm trying to get him to take his headset off. He wouldn't take it off. He's like, I don't know what you're saying. I go, Brady, because he's mid-sentence, Brady's back and he's warming up. And so I will say this. Prior to seeing Brady on the field, I was about to say, suffice to say, I don't think we're going to see Brady Cook anymore this afternoon. So if Missouri's going to win this game, it's going to be on the shoulders of Drew Pine. Boom, there's Brady Cook. Not even thinking that he was going to be able to return when he did. I just thought, well, he's just out there kind of testing it and seeing if it's going to, you know, if he needs to go in, if he's able to go in, if something happens to Pine. Lo and behold, man, he's back in the game. And needless to say, the way this team finished on the shoulders of Brady Cook, no matter what you think about Brady Cook beforehand, if nothing else, you better describe him as gutless. As a guy full of courage,
right.
A guy full of guts, and a guy that, all he cares about is his team playing football for the Missouri Tigers and winning football games. Talking about playing with pain, I don't know the nature of his injury. We haven't had it all announced yet, but I'm going to tell you, that guy is as tough as they come. And he may not be playing at his best all season long, but I'm glad he is the quarterback for the Missouri Tigers.
Howard, you're around the guys when they practice. You watch some of his practices. You're around them in the room traveling. You see him in different scenarios. The impact that he had on that game when he came in, what is it about Brady Cook that you've seen on non-game days that opens that door for him to come in and pick his teammates up and have his teammates play that much better with him in?
One word: leadership. He's a leader in every sense of the word, and that's why he's been a co-captain. Because he has that, as the French say, Curbs, he has that je ne sais quoi. It's that quality that you can't quite put your finger on, but he has it. Also known as the it factor. To be able to make plays when your team needs it most, to be able to be there to rally guys, to make a difference. Playing with pain, playing through probably injury more than pain here, but just putting his own personal, pain and problems aside and just going out there and doing it for the team. And this is why if you've seen the press conference, the post-game press conference with Drake, Drink's in tears, I think, because they've been through so much together, and Drink has defended Brady Cook when fans have booed him and maligned him and, really said some really nasty things about this young man. And for those that want to judge, I'd say walk a mile in his shoes. Having been a college football player, having been a professional football player, we all know, I know what it takes, when stuff's not going well for you. But to be able to be, the face of your program and have people throwing darts at you, it's hard. But he's been able to block out the noise and just goes out there and works his tail off. And just wanting to be a difference maker. And on Saturday, he was a difference maker. And regardless of what you say about Auburn, if Auburn is not a team that's probably leading the nation or among the leaders in turnovers, Auburn's probably a 5-2, 6-1 team.
Right.
We got a couple more minutes with Howard Richards, color analyst for the Missouri football team on the radio side. Howard, we've seen a lot of teams in the SEC drop 1, even 2 games so far this season. Mizzou, of course, as you mentioned, lost that 1, 6-1 on the season. But does this put them in a situation with this Alabama game upcoming as a do-or-die playoff moment for Mizzou?
Going into it, I would say probably yes. I think, beating Alabama, I think would certainly help boost Missouri's portfolio, if you will, especially going into a tough place to play, Tuscaloosa, playing on the road, in an environment that not a lot of teams have been successful in. But even though Alabama may not be, Nick Saban's Alabama, they're still Alabama. They're still really good at home. If Missouri can go in there and knock off this win and then reel off, the next 5 straight, then or 4, whatever it is, it'll be after that game. It'll be 5 games, right? If they could win the rest after that, certainly a team that should certainly be considered for playoff contention. If they lose, there's probably a good chance that, depending on how Alabama does the rest of the way, probably a good chance that they may be, on the outside looking in. But it's a long season. There's so much left. No one knows, how the rest of this second half of the season is going to unfold. No one would have, few people, I think, would have expected Georgia to go in and play as well as they did and just throttle Texas on Saturday. But this is college football. This is where it is today. And I think the parity, for just a broader fan, I think the parity in college football has made it more exciting this year than seeing, 2, 3, 4 teams at the top just kind of run away with it all.
Okay, Art, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. For Missouri to be one of the 12 teams in the playoff, what 3 things do you think need to happen for that to be a reality? And one qualifier, one quick qualifier. What 3 things in terms of on the field, like specific to the Missouri program?
Well, first of all, you'll have to win the rest of your games, I think, to even be a solid contender. From a style standpoint, I think your offense has to find a way to be far more explosive, right? And I think from a defensive standpoint, I think you need to be more aggressive and you need to force more turnovers. Essentially, be the team that so many of us expected this team to be at the outset of the 2024 season.
Howard, always love getting to catch up with you and talk Mizzou football, sir. Appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule and looking forward to that Mizzou-Alabama game on Saturday.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Howard, thanks, and we'll see you at the hockey rink, hopefully after a playoff run in college football. How's that sound?
Man, I'm looking forward to it, Curbs. I appreciate it. Maybe with a little bourbon on the side, too.
I will have some waiting for you. That's a promise. Thanks,
That's
Howard.
great. Howard Richards there, the radio analyst for the Missouri football team. And, Curbs, we'll get more into college football on the other side, but that Saturday game against Alabama, not only does it feel like it's do or die for Mizzou, what makes it even more appealing is it's do or die for Alabama to get in, because Alabama, of course, dropping their second game this past weekend.
But that's why I liked his answer to that last question, because he said something very important. He said stylistically. There's going to be, I think it's fascinating that you have all these one-loss teams already in the year that you expand the playoffs. So it's not like it really clarified a whole hell of a lot for you, did it? But having said that, this is one of those wild years where it used to be that if you were ranked and you found a way to win your next game, you weren't dropping in the rankings. You know, you at least were holding serve, if not moving up. Now, the only way you moved up is if one of the teams in front of you obviously lost. It was pretty much that simple. Well, now you're watching college football. You could be Mizzou. You could win 2 games and still be lower in the rankings because of how you won the games. And sometimes, like this idea, we forget that sometimes the important thing is, did you win the game?
Right.
And so now it's got to be you gotta dominate. It's a stylistic part of it. The hard thing in college sports is to gain that kind of consistency that the rarities that the Alabamas and several other programs have had, where when people are coming in, those expectations are there. Until those expectations have been set and that standard has been kind of officially hardened in your organization, you have to build it. Yep. And it's hard to build it when players come in and players go out. So, for example, it's hard to build it if Brady Cook has this kind of a finish, maybe, and then it's done, obviously, right? Yeah. So that's one of those challenges. But so stylistically, I think he's right. You're going to have to look even better in your wins than just win the game.
Yeah, and I got a 2:30 kickoff for that game on Saturday between Mizzou and Alabama. He's Chris Kerber, Graham Francis. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll get to your questions and answers. You can send us questions via the Air Comfort Service text line, Kerbs proved that to Joe and I over the weekend, although I still call that's not the proper pronunciation for us. But anyway, 314-399-9646. You can also send them over via our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. But we'll get to NFL quick hitters coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Over the weekend, the Blues picked up another come-from-behind victory, 4-3 over the Carolina Hurricanes. They were down 1-0 after the first period, but 3 goals in the second brought them back into the game. And after Carolina tied it at 3, Kasperi Kapanen picked up the game-winning goal as the Blues held on to pick up their 4th win of the season. They're back tomorrow, a Central Division matchup on home ice against the Winnipeg Jets. It'll be a 6 o'clock pregame and a 7 o'clock puck drop here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. And tonight, we'll wrap up the week in the NFL as it'll be Monday Night Football here on 101 ESPN. Ravens in Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. It'll be a 6:30 pregame following the Fast Lane, a 7:15 kickoff here on 101 ESPN. And also playing tonight will be the Cardinals and Chargers from Glendale. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber and Graham Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN as we'll get to your questions on the other side. 314-399-9646. You can also send them over our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Those studio cams presented by the Air Alliance team. But now we get into some NFL quick hitters as Week 6 comes to a close this evening. We will have Buccaneers and Ravens for you here on 101 ESPN with pregame beginning at 6:30. But guys, I want to start with the...
Wait, this is football, right?
This is football.
Okay.
You haven't heard that one for a while,
I just wanted to make sure I was on top of things.
Curbs, you still do fantasy football?
I do not.
Yeah. Curbs used to kick
I retired
the tar
as a
out
champion.
Of me.
Thank you very much.
Curbs kicked the tar out of me at KMOX in our fantasy football
This is
league.
going to be my last year of fantasy. It's pissed me off so much over the years.
It's fun watching Grant here.
You know, you want to know why I stopped playing? Okay, so, well, a couple of reasons. One, just timing of trying to stay on top of it. But the league that we had, Ben Boyd, our good buddy over there, ran a good league.
Yeah.
Okay, but there were 2 things that just constantly frustrated the hell out of me. Okay?
I think these are things that frustrate everybody with fantasy football.
The first one is I could pick up a free agent on, say, Saturday. He could play in my lineup on Sunday. Right? Okay. If somebody drops a player on Saturday, they're on waivers, you can't pick them up for 48 hours, which I would argue, I go, this is stupid. So what would happen? And I actually give some people some credit for the smarts on this, right? Okay. People would sometimes wait until the end of the week to, say, drop a player, and then that player is pretty much made ineligible for the week.
Yeah.
Right? So they knew that and I'm like, okay, well, I think this is kind of bogus. That was number 1. Number 2, it took them forever to approve a trade. Right, this 48-hour window in case somebody wants. I'm like, okay, look, you're the commissioner. Okay, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Land is here. Okay, there's one commissioner. You know whether it's a BS trade or not. Rule with an iron fist and say yes or no. You don't need a 48-hour window to approve a trade. And I'm like, okay, and I won the league. Okay, so I'm just saying.
Welcome to the frustration of fantasy football. Everybody feels that way.
I got to run it by my rules. And
can't play with my rules.
I did fantasy baseball once.
That's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen. So this is in the real early days of AOL. So I'm talking, this is like 96, 97.
Grant's looking at you like, what's AOL?
The 1997 baseball. What year were you born?
98. I know what AOL is. Never used it, but I know what it is.
Okay, right. He's the first generation that understood what a modem sound was as a way of going to sleep. Now they just call them sound machines. So I had papers spread out everywhere. The online draft was one of the first online drafts ever did it. The computer glitch prevented me from getting Randy Johnson. Dude, that summer I was up. I knew more single A, double A. Like if a player could have been called up from double A to triple A, I was ready for it. And then I realized at the end of that year, I cannot do this ever again. It was like going down an ultimate rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I distract you from today's
if
topics?
If you're keeping track at home, that's the first off-the-rails moment.
There's your bingo card early on, although we stayed somewhat on topic with fantasy baseball. Well, here's one guy that's probably not going to be in a lot of fantasy football lineups. It's Aaron Rodgers. So we've officially gotten
He cannot retire fast enough.
No. You've officially gotten the happy Aaron Rodgers because he had his best buddy, Devontae Adams. He was acquired. The team was like, hey, now we can go out there and win. And you lay an egg, not just against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but against Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jets are now 2-5. They fired their head coach. They've essentially talked about trading one of their wide receivers. They traded for another.
Do the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Cut your quarterback.
Everybody is on the same page.
Cut 'em out.
The New York Jets are officially done.
To do that, you do that to a coach. Why they made that move in the first place, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because
they were living off of an MVP from 3-4 years ago that said, hey, he can re-find his glory.
I have no problem watching Aaron Rodgers fail right now.
Oh, I think you're like most people. I mean, he didn't just fail, Curbs. He threw 2 interceptions, and I did get 276 yards.
It's got to be somebody else's fault, right?
Totally. It's probably Mike Williams' fault. That's what happened last time. Russell Wilson outperformed him. Think of what Russell Wilson with the Pittsburgh Steelers outperformed him.
Russell Wilson should outperform him. Okay? Russell Wilson should outperform him. He's younger, got a little more ability with his feet. I mean, it's somewhere there should be something, right?
Yeah, you'd think. But
pretty much just about everybody should.
Yeah.
Listen, I give Aaron Rodgers a ton of credit for being able to come back from that injury like he did, as quickly as he did, and all the factors involved in that.
Yeah.
Right? But his time in the NFL's done.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing, too, for the Jets. Like, the last time Russell Wilson put up 37 or more points was 2022 with the Seahawks. Like, their fallback, if the offense was not good, was that their defense was going to be good this season. And they just gave up the most points to the Steelers that, Wilson's had since 2 years ago. So, I mean, even their fallback looks nasty right now.
Yeah, well, another team that, I don't know if they're done, but it sure does not look pretty is the San Francisco 49ers. So much so, you lose 28-18 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, San Francisco is one of those teams that, when healthy, they'll figure it out. But you're seeing Brock Purdy on the sidelines having conversations with Kyle Shanahan.
Wait, can I jump in for a second?
Of course. Number 2, ladies and gentlemen.
No, go back. Like, were the Jets supposed to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers?
On paper, yes. They were the favorite. Only by 1.5, but they were the favorite.
Why?
Pittsburgh's offense has been
I mean, the Vegas people know a hell of a lot more than I do.
I mean, Pittsburgh's offense has been non-existent.
No, they have found a way to win games.
They have.
And that's, I mean, go back to what we were just talking about with college. Like, sometimes you're just finding a way to win.
Yeah.
But you got one team that's finding a way to win some games, you got another team that can't.
And I agree with you. If I was betting on last night's game, which I didn't, but if I was going to, I would have put money on the Steelers in that one. But from the Jets standpoint, they were supposed to get, a lot of people had the Jets in the AFC Championship this year.
A lot of people thought they were Super Bowl contenders. Because what Grant said, their defense was supposed to be sensational. Well, they think this is the third game this season that the Jets have given up 30 or more points.
The best part is I have no idea what the hell I'm even talking about. And that one seems to make sense to me.
But it's
actually, it's not true. I know what I'm talking about. But I enjoyed my Sunday, and it wasn't watching a whole lot of football.
Understandably so. Well, I did watch that Chiefs and 49ers game. I thought it was going to be tighter. I thought that was going to be a much closer game, but I think I'm falling off of this San Francisco 49ers Brock Purdy train. That is, they'll be back there again.
What's wild to me is that everybody assumed after the Jordan Love contract that once Brock Purdy's contract was up, he was going to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, which was wild to me because to me, like, he's proved nothing. He's proved that he can play with all the weapons that the 49ers have, but he hasn't proved anything personally as a quarterback. He's made it to the NFC Championship, to the Super Bowl, but with all of those weapons, like without them, now you're seeing the warts of Brock Purdy. I think it's wild that he was in consideration to be the top paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how we give quarterbacks credit when they've got the pieces around them to have the time to do what they do, right? And then we say they can't do it when they don't have the pieces around them.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with Brock Purdy is everybody goes to it and says, well, he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. And somebody had posted this on The Athletic earlier today. I forget who the author was, but they showed the numbers with Christian McCaffrey on the field for Brock Purdy and without Christian McCaffrey on the field without Brock Purdy. They are the exact same. They are the exact same in almost every scenario. You're talking touchdowns was 40-14 versus 16-5. Completion rate 67% versus 66%. Yards after catch is the part that's the difference. 50% versus 35%.
What's Mahomes without Kelsey?
Yeah.
What was Brady without Gronk?
Mahomes without Kelsey Although this season has not been very pretty, but this season Kelsey has been non-existent, and they've been finding ways to put up points.
He's still out there.
Yeah, still out there, still
a
blocking plays. But I just, it's one of those things you watch and you sit there and say,
why were people so excited that Devontae Adams was back with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got his guy again.
well, 4 years ago he's got his guy again.
I know, but yeah. So like that's no different. It's like just great duos in all of sports, isn't it? Like good quarterbacks, and they get somebody that's real comfortable that they can go to.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah. Well, and he still had Brandon Ayuk on the field, and Ayuk missed a couple of catches. I don't know. San Francisco was just one of those weird teams, which is why, final one here on NFL Quick Hitters, it's easy for me to look at the NFC and see who the best team is, and it's the Detroit Lions. Now, the Vikings went toe-to-toe with them. Vikings are up there just as well. I know the Packers won. I think your three best teams in the NFC are coming out of that NFC North division right now with Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay.
The worst team in that division is 4-2 right now.
Which probably might make the playoffs for how the NFC is going with the Philadelphia Eagles, although I know they picked up their win with the Washington Commanders. Like, you might see four teams push for one of those playoff spots.
I do think you can give the edge to the Lions because they've sort of built that reputation that they're supposed to be one of the best teams. The Vikings haven't done that, but would you be saying that the Lions were the clear-cut favorite if they missed that game-winning field goal last night and the Vikings are 6-0? Like, it could have gone either way.
They probably a tie for first
night.
Yeah, but so, the difference on that one is they didn't have Aiden Hutchinson. And I don't know if Aiden Hutchinson's coming back, but, I mean, he's a difference maker, and you went toe-to-toe with that defense, and you still found a way to put up 28 points.
Yeah.
29 points.
I think if that's a playoff that you see in the playoffs, that's going to be an awesome game.
Oh, yeah.
Just like we saw last night, that's going to be an awesome game in the playoffs if that's a matchup.
I think the NFC playoff field is going to be so much fun this season because it's wide open with the exception of those top three teams. You have a lot of teams that are underneath that are getting into the playoffs and sneaking in. Chris Kerber, Grant Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll get to your questions. Send them over 314-399-9646. Air Comfort Service text line over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. We'll answer your questions next on 101 ESPN. 888-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line. You can also tweet us, Ferrario 101 ESPN, at 101 ESPN STL, and up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. With the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, and Graham Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's start with this one from the 314. Fellas, looks like the Toronto Maple Leafs might be in a cap situation with Timothy Liljegren, a 25-year-old defenseman. Should the Blues pursue another trade for another young defenseman?
Ooh, that's a fascinating question.
$4 million for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, the simple answer is I think you always want to explore it. I think if you look at where the St. Louis Blues are now, with having another year left on letting another couple on Falk, and then you've got still the couple, what you've got coming over from Europe, I don't know that you have to be in that market.
Yeah. Doesn't make much sense, at least for now.
It makes sense for right now, no. For right now.
Because he's a right-handed defenseman, and
you're right. So, and the challenge is what are you going to do? Are you going to, you're not playing him over Parayko, right? You're not playing him over Falk at right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you maybe play him over Kessel? Yeah, but again, we remember what we talked about at the opening show. You're gonna block the development of your own guys.
Yeah.
And by the way, you don't have the $4 million in cap space. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you'd have to clear that out from somewhere else. To me, it's just not. It's not a necessary thing to look at at all.
Well, and you got role players, Matt.
But I say always consider things.
Yeah.
But
it's always out there for you. From the 417, what are your thoughts on the Nashville Predators being winless?
Yeah, this one's a fascinating one to me. I think that the Nashville Predators are a team that, and the standings are a mess, not a mess, but the standings in the Central Division should scare you when you look at the bottom, seeing Colorado and Nashville right now, because I don't think that's how that's going to finish up. To me, the Nashville Predators are a team where they made enough changes. They have a couple of big names coming in. Guys have to adjust. Guys that were used to normally going over the boards. For example, let's go back to Ryan O'Reilly's last year with the team, and the team was put in, and especially those first 25 games, it was Robert Thomas going over the boards to take over all those faceoffs.
Yeah.
It was a hard adjustment for Ryan O'Reilly, and I talked to him about specifically that. You've got guys in Nashville, and now all of a sudden Stamkos is going over the boards and things. So I think Nashville's going to be just fine. It's just taking a little bit of time to gel. And despite camp being just a couple weeks, and despite having 5 or 6 preseason games, that is a great example of a team that I think probably should have played more of their whole team together.
It's just
a little more often.
It's wild to be looking at Nashville and Colorado. Colorado's a little bit more explainable, but to see both of those teams struggle so bad on the goaltending side of things, especially with Jussi Saros with Nashville. But how many times have we seen new faces, and a lot of new faces on a new team?
And how much of that is the play in front of them?
Yep.
Saw
that with Binnington a few years ago.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yep. Final one, fellas, after City season has come to a close, an 8-13-13 overall record, what are your thoughts moving forward with this squad?
Ooh, we're hitting this one, huh?
Yeah.
We're doing this one now?
Yeah.
I got time right now?
You got time.
I've got time right now. Okay, here we go. First off, my thought process for City fans is this. I think you have to take the first 15 games of year one and throw them out the window. Okay? It was exciting. It was great. There was a vibe. But the rest of last season and all of this season reminded you exactly what you are, an expansion team. And not an expansion team like the Vegas Golden Knights, were, or like the Seattle Kraken, where you were picking, from pretty good players to do it. You are truly what is defined in sports as an expansion team. I was talking to Matthew Rocchio about this. He brought up actually a really good point, too. It does take, you're going to have to take some time and some patience through some transfer windows and through some summer times to build up the kind of depth that you need to be successful in MLS or any pro soccer league for that matter. Okay, so that is that side. Controversial or not, if people like this or not, I think it's time to, I'm okay if you say, I appreciate what you've done for us over the first 2 years, João Klaus, and move on.
Yeah.
I don't see him impacting the game as much as I think he should. He clearly isn't impacting the game as much as he did in the first half of year one. Yes, some of that is the fact that you're not getting balls put into the middle, and some of the deliveries from Edward Leuven haven't been as good. He lost Giacchini, obviously, after the first year, okay? And then Pompeo this year with a season-ending injury was big. But you know me, and you know that last game I was at. I can't stand that flopping. You're too big of a guy, right? And this year, more than the previous year, too much with the arms waving in the air, too much with looking at the referee. Just beat the other guy off the ball. And he did it once this year. You know, some people thought it should have been a penalty. I can't remember. Was it the game against Seattle where he just blew the guy up, right? Going for it. That's what you want to see. I don't see near enough aggressiveness. Now, this is me sitting in the 200 section. This is not me in the locker room. Okay. All right. Having said that, I think when they brought Teuchert in, I think that's a great option. Klaus at 6'1", I don't think is good enough in the air. I don't think he wins enough head balls. And then when he does get his head on it, he's there. He's not a threat. He absolutely isn't a threat on corner kicks, right? And on some of these set pieces. Tim Parker was a better threat on those set pieces than João Klaus has been. Yeah. Right. So I think from my standpoint, I'm okay moving on from him and continuing this transformation back into another into a team. Interestingly enough, for me, the time when Lutz Van Astel let go of Bradley Carnell, Lutz Van Astel put the spotlight more directly onto himself. Okay. Now, I don't know if there was something in the locker room, you know, there was a tension between players, coaches, whatever. This all happens. These are things you only know when you're around it all the time. And I'm not Tom Timmerman. I am not. Okay. I'm coming at this from a pure fan standpoint, right? That sits in the stands and loves cheering for this team. Okay. But when he did that, put the focus on himself a little bit, because that's firing one of your bullets in that situation as a general manager, or in this case, a club director. So, to me, the decision on who's going to be the head coach, if it's Hacksworth, if he stays, okay, I don't know that this team was all, and they were 10 games over 500, like the Blues were under Bannister, right? Yeah. They looked pretty much the same team, just a little more structured. Okay, so I think this becomes a really intriguing offseason, for Lutz Van Astel in that one. I do like the moves that he made at the transfer window. I do believe he's got the freedom and the leash to be able to do that. Okay, but the expectations with the crowd and the fans here, this isn't one, hey, there's going to be a slow build, but you came out of the gate on fire. Right. And then you fired a coach after a slow start in year 2. Yep. Okay, so that tells me that, okay, you came out of the gate on fire, but you're still not happy with the way things are going, and I think the fans are going to expect it too. And especially after going this, next year, that's when the third year of all those 3-year season ticket licenses are up. Yeah. So fans have to start making decisions there. All this will start coming together. I think it's a massive offseason here for City.
Especially try and turn around when you got a goalkeeper like Roman Berkey, one of the best in the game. You try and capitalize on that.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you something. Even Berkey has to be better. Yeah. You know what? There were a good number of goals this year that Berkey either absolutely had to catch or keep clean, but that were put in off of rebounds that he gave up. And look, he's fired. And as a fan, I love him. I want him as my goalie. I think if he's not the best, he's easily one of the 2 or 3 best goaltenders in MLS. Yeah. Okay. But I think that even Berkey himself can be better. The same way he's got that fire, the demand from his teammates as he does is on the field. I think he's got to channel that inwardly as well. But I think there's another level for Berkey that's got to be a part of this too.
See? Told you had plenty of time for that one, Curbs. Yeah. And you stayed on track.
How about that one?
Only once right now. I like this over-under that he set.
I don't know if the fans are all over the... but I just... Oh, my gosh. When I saw Klaus flop on that one, I'm like, you've got... And then the fans come at me when I put it out there, go, you don't understand soccer. I'm like, man... Which one of you morons out there? Which one of you out there buys a ticket to a sporting event? And by the way, Alex, you can back me up on this. I'm the same way on this topic in hockey, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What NHL fan buys a ticket to say, I can't wait to see a guy fake a high stick call today? What MLS fan buys a ticket to say, I can't wait to see us draw a penalty by flopping? None. None of you. Even though they think that, well, that's the culture of the sport. None of you. Nobody buys a ticket to watch Neymar flop. Okay?
Hell of a game,
So
though.
when I see that from my own team, it hacks me off, especially if you're 6'1". Now, they list João Klaus at 6'1", 165. Holy smokes, eat something. Like, get him in the weight room. If you're 6'1" and 165 pounds, no wonder you're getting kind of knocked around a little bit. Okay? All right? I mean, I've been 5'9", 165 from like freshman year. Now, that's a different type of physicality we're talking about here.
Not knocking
And
Curbs
diet.
off anything.
Okay.
He's Chris Kerber, Grant Francis. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, how would you rank the top 5 moves of Doug Armstrong's career in St. Louis? Well, we all have our list. We'll discuss that. And what can a top defenseman do for a team to get into a cup window? We'll touch on those next here on 101 ESPN.
Jarvis is going to bring it in over the line where he's checked there by Justin Falk and played out to Matthew Joseph, who skates ahead to Dylan Holloway. Enters the zone, leaves it for Broberg. Takes it down along the wing, drags into the middle, down low. They shoot, they score! What a play between the legs of Holloway to flip it over the goalie on a terrific drive.
imagine that goal that was scored Saturday, if Edmonton Oiler fans were watching it, there were some people punching holes in walls, Curbs. When you get Philip Broberg drive up the ice, who's in the midst of a 5-game point streak, he gives it over to Dylan Holloway, who just stick handles himself right through danger, and a beauty of a backhanded goal to put the Blues back into that hockey game. With Chris Kerber and Graham Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg have already gotten Blues fans to fall in love, Curbs. You're talking about two guys at offer sheets that come in and have made an impact immediately, with Broberg, who just continues to put himself in franchise records with the point streak. Dylan Holloway, who's got a goal and an assist right now through 6 games of the regular season. And it does make you look back on Doug Armstrong's time in St. Louis. And I've seen people bring this up. We talked about this on Friday. If Broberg and Holloway have already put themselves into the top 5 moves conversation. And there are a lot of them to discuss with Doug Armstrong that have been impactful on this organization. It's hard to keep those guys out, Curbs, even 6 games into a season, with the unknown of what their future can look like because of how different this team looks right now.
I think, okay, so I wrote down what I consider to be my top 5 moves of Doug Armstrong.
I've got mine as well.
Okay. I put the offer sheets as move number 5. And the reason, obviously, there's early season success, but I'm not foolish enough to think that all of a sudden you just picked up, 2 Hall of Famers here, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not going down that road. But the reason that I put that in there is It showed his aggressiveness, his understanding of the CBA. It showed his understanding of the pressure points of another team. And it didn't just go to the fact that the Edmonton Oilers were up against the cap. It was about the cap of next year, knowing that it was going to go up and how that was going to go. It was looking at a couple of other factors that have all been in there. And it was also the timing of it, knowing that a potential buyout window was closed. There was a lot of strategy that went into this. I think it showed his experience, his cold-bloodedness when it comes to this kind of thing, but then also realizing, boy, there's 2 real opportunities here, and we have that window for them. And putting all that in there, the excitement of what it meant for this summer, the excitement to the fan base, what we're already seeing on the ice as the potential, I think it's worthy to go ahead and put that in there as a top 5 move.
Yeah, I had that as number 5, and it's 6 games in. It's just, and we'll get into this in just a couple of minutes, but when you look at what a top defenseman can do for a team, and then bring in another young forward who plays into your top 9. Last season, you were asking questions every game of, hey, who works well into your top 4? Who can play in that spot? Because you had Krug, you had Leddy, and it felt like you weren't building anything defensively. And then on the forward side, you went everywhere from Sammy Blais to Jakub Vrana to Kasperi Kapanen, and you couldn't find chemistry in your top 3 lines. Dylan Holloway comes in. He starts the season with Robert Thomas, looks good, but then they just slowly move him down and find the right chemistry with a line that drove your offense against the Carolina Hurricanes. So that one was in there for me right now. I am curious what the other 4 are, Curbs.
Okay, number 4 for me?
Yeah.
Acquiring Jay Bouwmeester.
Okay.
Did you have that in your list?
That one's number 2 for me.
That's number 2?
That was number 2.
That was number 2 on your list.
That was number 2.
Okay.
Here's why. That felt like you had Kevin Shattenkirk, you had Alex Pietrangelo. You were searching for somebody to play with Pietrangelo. And I know he was the whipping boy for the longest time for the Blues, Curbs. But you solidified your top 4. And then as that season progressed, you saw Pietrangelo progress. You saw Shattenkirk progress. But Jay Bouwmeester just continued to be that lockdown defenseman. And Ken Hitchcock era was able to do what they did having a guy like Jay Bouwmeester.
Okay, so that was my number 4 move, because in the end, now you have to extend that one out one more, because when Jay Bouwmeester could have become an unrestricted free agent, Doug Armstrong sat with him and he said, look, you can go play somewhere else. Maybe you're going to make a little bit more money somewhere else. This is what we're building here, or you can be part of building something here and have a chance at a championship.
Yeah.
And Doug Armstrong sold that vision, much like he sold the vision to Pavel Buchnevich recently, right? Mm-hmm. And he sold that vision. Jay Bouwmeester said, I'm all in on it. Stanley Cup champion.
Yep.
Pretty
Totally.
impressive. Okay, number 3?
Yep.
You can argue with me on whether or not this is 2 things. Okay? And it is, but I'm lumping it into one. Okay? Coach's decisions. the hiring of Hitchcock and Berube.
Okay. That did not make my top 5, but I like that one.
That's my number 3 top move. He advanced this team royally when he brought in Ken Hitchcock. And he walked into the room and said, well, now I know I have a good coach, so if there's a problem with this team, it's in this room. And Ken Hitchcock taught and coached a style of play that eventually led to a conference final, and that was huge in terms of eventually 3 years later going on to win a Stanley Cup. And then obviously the guts to make the coaching move to then keep Craig Berube. Craig Berube, I'm told that another team asked. I was told Colorado asked permission to talk to Craig Berube when
he was in the minors.
When Patrick Waugh before they brought in Bednar.
Wow.
Right, and the Blues said no. Now I haven't confirmed that with the Blues. I'm just telling you I was told that, but I like my source on that one. Okay, but the Blues said no, we like our guy, and then he had the gumption to go ahead and put Berube in charge in 2019. So coaching moves is number 3 for me.
I like that one. Would you put one in front of the other? Like if you were to,
well,
like
you
another
almost
tie.
Yes, I put the Berube one because he won the Stanley Cup.
See, I was wondering if you'd put the Hitchcock one because you got to the style that Berube was able to continue.
But I don't think Craig Berube gets a chance to do what he did with this team without the foundation that Ken Hitchcock put in place.
That's where I was getting at.
So that's why I put them together on that piece, because I'm not sure Berube has the success without the foundation that this core had set under Hitchcock.
Okay, what else you got?
Okay, that was number 3.
Yep.
Number 2, trading David Rundblad to the Ottawa Senators to get the 16th overall pick of the draft, and that would be when the Blues acquired Vladimir Tarasenko.
So somebody brought this up to me on Twitter when we were talking about this on Friday and said, how can you not put that? And my only limit with that was you were trading for a draft pick. So as great as it was of a move by Army, I also have to give that credit to the scouting department.
If I'm looking back at it, well, yes, I'm going to give Jarmo Kekalainen a huge, but he is the general manager. They did decide to pull that move, right? And they looked at the Blues defense at the time. You had Rundblad, you had Eric Johnson, you had Pietrangelo, right?
Yeah.
And they said, we're not going to have room for all these same shot defenseman,
left-handed or right-handed defenseman.
So we're going to go ahead and move one of them. He moves one and takes a guy that they were there are a lot of people in the NHL were convinced that Vladimir Tarasenko was a top 5 pick, but people were worried he wasn't going to come over to play. And it was Jarmo Kekalainen that was dead convinced he was going to come over and play. When he was available, they made that trade and they took him at 16.
Yeah,
right. So to me, and that's obviously a franchise-changing draft pick in Vladimir Tarasenko for a draft pick that you did not originally have 10 minutes earlier.
Okay.
So to me, that's number 2.
All right. What's number 1?
That's a no-brainer. Ryan O'Reilly.
Okay.
The Ryan O'Reilly deal for me with it's a trade that they had worked on at the draft. They were not able to get a deal done. They circled back when they got closer to free agency. And when he was able to re-sign David Perron and then re-sign Tyler Bozak and realize he had a little more depth than in his fold. Okay, you also had the Patrick Berglund agent snafu of not putting into teams he couldn't go to. Doug Armstrong circled back with Buffalo, and they got the deal done. So that's not like this deal just came about over a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. That deal, well, I guess over a couple of weeks you could say because of draft and free agency, but that was a deal that had been in the works for a little while that he was able to pull off.
All right, so I'm going to give you the rest of mine. It said the offer sheet was number 5, and I had Jay Bomeister at number 2. Number 4 on this list was Troy Brouwer. And the Troy Brouwer one, it's going to piss people off because you traded TJ Oshie. Yeah. You don't get past the Chicago Blackhawks without Troy Brouwer, and I wonder what happens to your organization if for another season, that would have been the third year.
Wait a minute. Troy Brouwer helped get you past him. Can you say you don't get past him without him? Now you can because of what he did. Now, and to your point, I thought about this one.
Yeah.
It's a good one to throw in there and a legit one to throw in there because when they went into Game 7 in that 2016 first round against a team that was already of championship pedigree of the Chicago Blackhawks, right? Troy Brouwer was the only St. Louis Blues player on the roster that had played in a Game 7.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think he had played in like 6 straight, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's I think I'm totally cool with you putting that in your top 5.
How many times have we seen teams, Curbs, be unable to get past another squad in the playoffs, and they reshape their roster, and it goes poorly, and then they're trying to figure it out once again.
But if there's also a list that I put together off the top of my mind of trades I'd like to have back.
It's the Oshie one.
In the Doug Armstrong era?
Yeah.
That's one of them.
That's one of them. Bishop would be the other one.
That's the... Listen, Darren Pang and I asked Doug Armstrong that question.
Really?
About those. Yeah, we'll get into it. Go finish your list.
Okay, so number 3 on my list was actually Ryan O'Reilly. He's not at number 1. Same reasons why I have Ryan O'Reilly on this list. Number 1's Braden Shen. And here's why.
Son of a gun.
I know you traded first-round draft picks.
Fair enough.
If you look at Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, they've been good. But Braden Shen, from the moment he stepped in with the Blues, if you look at numbers in the organization, Shen leads in goals, assists, points, and game-winning goals.
I can't argue with you on that.
Yeah.
And I probably, I put Shen in my honorable mention list with calling up Benner and then the Shattenkirk trade.
Yeah.
I can be convinced. I can be convinced that you take the offer sheets out of my top 5, you put Shen in my top 5, and then you can juggle them around.
You know what's wild? We didn't even have, either of us had Booch's trade in there.
That's okay. That one, not yet. Not yet.
That's what I was going to say.
Because these other ones clearly led to a championship in that window.
And the Buchnevich one is yet to be determined by the end of it.
But listen, go back. Even if you look at the Jay Bomeister trade, I don't know if we've totally blown our clock here.
Yeah, we have, but it's fine. This is a great conversation.
All right, traded the Calgary Flames so the Blues traded Rito Berra, Mark Kundari, and a first-round pick who became Emile Poirier. Poirier. It's French. Howard Richards threw French at me, and I said I kind of like the it factor better. It's an easier way of saying that. I can't look, and I'll compare this to the Cardinals down the street. I can't look at any trade that Doug Armstrong has made and said, you got hosed, or say you gave up, like you didn't get something for it. Like even the Oshie one is one that can be a lot of debate. You got 1 year out of Brouwer, but again, you go talk to Parayko and Steen and those guys, and that 2018 or 2016 run was a huge building block for 2019. I don't know if you're right. I mean, Brouwer had an impact in there. Okay, so, but I mean, some of these trades. One of the better players you're talking about that you traded was William Carrier.
Yeah.
Okay, and in that sense, you traded him for Ryan Miller. Now, did that deal work out for the Blues? No. But at that time, Ryan Miller was the goaltender on the market, and you took a crack at it.
You got the best goaltender available.
You know, as much as Jarl Halak, to me, I'm not a fan of the work ethic I ended up seeing on a regular basis there, right? But he did win a Jennings Trophy with Brian Elliott.
Yeah.
I absolutely hated the Ben Bishop deal. I think that to me, the Ben Bishop trade might be top 2, if not top 1.
Yeah.
Poor trade during the Doug Armstrong tenure. Having said that, Brian Elliott, who he decided to keep, go look at the all-time franchise rankings, and he's first or second in just about everything.
Yep.
Right? So none of them are clear-cut. You let a Randy Arozarena go.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
You know, nobody that the Blues have Oshie. I mean, you got to put the Oshie one in there. Okay, but at least you got something for them.
It helped you.
Yeah. For the most part, the Blues are making these deals, and it's not like
by the end of his career, you're probably going to have to talk top 10 rather than just top 5.
Yeah, listen, it's going to be pretty cool to see Doug Armstrong in the Hall of Fame with his dad. You know, have a father-son tandem, and the father's an official, and Doug Armstrong's a manager. But those are my 5. I think you're totally good with the Shen one.
Yeah. One quick thing here, just looking at this stretch in 2017 from February to June, traded Kevin Shattenkirk for Zach Sanford, Stanley Cup champion, which you can turn your nose up at Zach Sanford, but that Stanley Cup final, he had 5 points in 5 games played. He was an impact in that Stanley Cup final.
Keep in mind, you are not going to be re-signing Kevin Shattenkirk.
Sure. Shattenkirk had to get traded.
There was the reason for that trade there.
Mark that one in June. Trade Ryan Reeves for Oscar Sundqvist.
Yep.
And then again in June, same day, you
And a
trade for
first-round
Braden
pick.
Shen.
Dude,
Right.
You got Sundqvist and a first-round pick.
I give Ryan Reeves still all the credit in the world. The fact that he's still playing, one of 4 guys remaining in the National Hockey League still playing without a visor.
Yeah.
Okay. Only 4 guys. I think it's Ryan O'Reilly, Ryan Reeves, Zach Bogosian. O'Reilly, Reeves, Bogosian.
I just saw this the other day, too.
I can't remember who the other one was. And but Ryan Reeves made himself enough of a player that the
Jamie Benn.
Jamie
That's
Benn,
who it
that's it. Thank you, Grant. That the Pittsburgh Penguins are willing to give up Oscar Sundqvist and a first-round pick.
Yeah.
And a first-round pick. Yeah, but Ryan Reeves for Oscar Sundqvist.
But-
and real quick, can I tell you a real quick Sundqvist story?
Uh-huh.
Totally destroy the clock now? Okay.
We're fine. We'll figure it out.
I did an event with Doug Armstrong, and he told this Oscar Sundqvist story when it comes to skating. He goes, sometimes you got to scout and you got to talk to Zamboni drivers and just people that hang out at the rink and find things out. Here's something that our scouts learned about Oscar Sundqvist. His first year at a place, if he's a little uncomfortable, it could be an up and down year. Like think of what the Pittsburgh Penguins were doing with him, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. When he gets comfortable is when he really takes off. And it was after he got comfortable here.
Yeah.
Just a simple scouting report like that.
Yeah. It was
And
that first season that he went off the
which is why I'm so glad he got that 2-year deal.
Yeah.
He wants to be here.
Trade tree, and we'll end it with this because I know Curbs loves these. That Kevin Shattenkirk trade that Grant was talking about.
Yeah.
You also had the first-round draft pick in it. That was Morgan Frost. That first-round pick is what you trade to Philly to get Braden Shen.
Boom.
Kevin Shattenkirk was Braden
The gifts
Shen.
that keep on giving.
God, I love trade trees. He's Chris Kerber, Grant Francis. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, I know a lot of Cardinals fans had joy and probably some misery watching Tommy Edman go off in the postseason. But I have a take on the side of this refresh. Might be putting the Cardinals in a worse spot. We'll discuss next on 101 ESPN.
field. Back goes Nimmo. Clean up Tommy Edman. A two-run blast. Little man with a big impact in his first October in L.A.
Tommy Edman, the NLCS MVP, as the Dodgers take down the Mets in 6 games in our World Series, the LA Dodgers and New York Yankees. Along with Chris Kerber and Graham Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. So, Kerbs, Tommy Edman, just one of the many names on a list that you look back and you see a former Cardinal that was traded away that goes on to have success, not just with his team in the regular season, but in the postseason. You're seeing a lot of that already this year, where it was Lane Thomas with the Cleveland Guardians, Luke Weaver, the closer for the New York Yankees, and of course Tommy Edman yesterday. And as I'm watching him hit that 2-run bomb in the middle of the game, I sit back and I look at where the Cardinals are going in this offseason, to where they've talked about the refresh, and the statement at that press conference they had was, we need to get back what we did well in terms of minor league system, minor league development, so these guys get up to the majors and have success. And, man, I wonder if the Cardinals are pushing themselves in the wrong direction, further away to where they actually could be this offseason. Because I see a Tommy Edman. Cardinals identified that player. They saw that player have success with them in the regular season and in the postseason. Randy Arozarena had them in their system, developed, identified that player, and built him through the system. Got rid of him a little bit early on. Luke Weaver, a part of their team. Jordan Hicks this past year, who was a closer for the Cardinals, a starting pitcher for the Giants. It just seems that the Cardinals know how to find those complementary pieces. You look at Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan. These are the guys that I think anybody would believe, looking at this postseason in some of these teams, they could have had a moment like a Kike Hernandez had for the LA Dodgers. All they needed to do, which I know the most easy thing possible, right, if you're a team, is look at your squad and say, man, we need an impact player. We need a guy in the middle of the order who can come up in a big moment and keep our team alive. And that's one move with some complementary pieces. The Cardinals are doing it right with their minor league system. They're doing it right with identifying these players. They just needed to make a move to bring in another main piece to keep them afloat.
Okay. All right, let me play devil's advocate.
Please.
For you, okay. How much longer you want to keep trying that? The problem is...
What if you get a young player at 25?
I know, but I hear exactly what you're saying, Alex. And what you're saying is what you're basically saying is, why aren't they doing what the Blues are trying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not keep it in a rebuild or a retool?
They've tried. They failed at it. This is the problem. They failed. They went to one of the worst records in close to 100 years, followed it up. Look, they were actually 12 games better this year. Yeah.
But you failed with 2 guys in terms of Goldschmidt and Arenado who were...
No. You failed. You failed in the surrounding cast part. You have those 2 guys. Maybe to your point, your point is you're trying to... They should have moved one of those 2 guys, kept Edman or something like that.
Yep.
Okay, that's hard to do if you're, kind of like the Blues did. They knew that Ryan O'Reilly had plenty of good hockey left in him. Okay, and went ahead and said, okay, but we're gonna turn this over. To me, what if we change the word? What if we change the word from development? So in their press conference, the Cardinals talked about how we have to go and we're going to redo, our development system, or we need to, Heimblum to look into and put all of his teeth into our development. Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's not. To me, it's not development. It's evaluation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you're seeing that with these guys going on.
There's an evaluation. And John Mozeliak said, look, they've got an evaluation system. Told me this several years ago. They've got an evaluation system, and with that evaluation system comes a certain dollar amount. And if somebody's what we value that player at, they're asking for more than that, then they don't fit in. Which ironically is something Bill Guerin recently just said.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not an unknown, across the sports, the system here. But the problem is your evaluation, whether it be of your own players or your evaluation of another team's prospect. Okay, if Matthew Liberatore becomes a really good left-handed starting pitcher for you, right? The sting of a Arozarena going for him is not really that bad.
Yeah.
You have trading away Eric Johnson for Kevin Shattenkirk. Okay, trading something to get something. At least we can look right now, as we did in the last segment, and say Troy Brouwer helped you get over a hump, and it cost you T.J. Oshie. Okay, one of my all-time favorite NHL moves, okay, for example, is the Jerome McGinley from Dallas, for Langenbrunner, that won Dallas a Stanley Cup. In baseball, there are similar moves, but you got to get something for them, all right? And you're not talking 4 or 5 years later where that player is still a question mark, where if you are trading somebody of that value, of that evaluation, you've got to get back in return. The problem is all the names of people that you're mentioning that are performing elsewhere and doing well, the Cardinals have nothing to show for letting them go. That's almost as big of a factor as letting them go. Do you have a real problem that they traded Tommy Edman while he was hurt after the last few seasons? No. I mean, Tommy Edman was part, right, of going to a championship series his rookie year. But since then, no. And frankly, the more pieces you give this manager that you can just interchange and move people around. Put somebody in a dang position and let them play it. Okay, now I say that, and then look what the Dodgers are doing to Tommy Edman. He's the one. Okay, so you're going to have your Okenda, you're going to have your secret weapon, but it's the fact that they're letting these guys go, and they're not getting anything that is showing to help them with their future. Okay,
yeah.
The Blues trade Ryan O'Reilly. You get a first-round pick. It may not work out yet. It looks promising with the kid from Sweden that they took, but you don't know that yet, so it's not fair to really say, well, that was a good trade. I don't think right now. That Barbashev trade for Zach Dean, I don't know what Zach Dean's future is. He's hurt again right now in Springfield. Yeah. Okay. That one could be an example of trading something like that and not really getting anything. Now, we'll see. Zach Dean has to still grow. Okay? Liberators had time to grow. So that's why a trade like a Rosarina stings. Okay? Fetty? Like,
that only helped you for the now.
But having said that, now let's go the other way in all fairness. Okay, before people go, in one person sitting in St. Louis as a fan, I'm betting down even at Busch Stadium, right? That says, well, we're trading away an NLCS MVP caliber player.
Yep.
Okay? What he did in this series, like the last player to get 11 hits and 11 RBIs was David Ortiz. Tommy Edman is not David Ortiz.
Looked like him in that series.
Okay, right, but he's not David Ortiz.
Right.
Okay? I mean, David Eckstein.
Yeah.
Is an MVP. Okay? You can have good runs to do it. In the same time, the Cardinals were where they are. You're going to move some pieces out. You just want to see them get. Yeah. I don't mind pieces getting moved out. I want to see some product in what's coming back.
Yeah, well, and that's what you're hoping they'll figure out with this evaluation side of it with Chaim Bloom in place. We've talked to Boston Red Sox beat writer, the Tampa Bay Rays beat writer, just finding out who Chaim Bloom is, and that seems to be his area of expertise. But we do got an all-time matchup in this World Series, Yankees and Dodgers. I can't
wait for this. I'm looking forward to this.
This is going to be a really fun one.
I love the World Series anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. He's Chris Kerber, Grant Francis. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll get to the junk drawer, but coming up next, the Central Division right now in the NHL is showcasing its dominance. Could that be a piece for the St. Louis Blues to continue to build? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. On Saturday, the Blues picked up another win and another come-from-behind win as they beat the Carolina Hurricanes 4-3 after being down 1-0 in the first period. They scored 3 in the third, and though Carolina came back and tied it at 3, Kasperi Kapanen picked up the game-winning goal in the third period as the Blues win 4-3 over Carolina. They'll be back tomorrow, a big one, a Central Division matchup here on home ice against the Winnipeg Jets, who are undefeated so far through 5 games. It'll be a 6 o'clock pregame, 7 o'clock puck drop here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. And then the NFL, it'll be Monday Night Football here as we round out the week in the NFL. Ravens and Buccaneers on 101 ESPN tonight, 6:30 pregame after the fast lane and a 7:15 kickoff here on ESPN. And also playing tonight, the Cardinals and Chargers for Monday Night Football from Glendale, Arizona. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
So over the last 5 to 10 years, it feels like every year you start the season and you look at it and you say, oh, the Central Division is going to be tough. You go down the line where it's Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas, 3 teams that I think every season people look at and you say, they could be Stanley Cup contenders. But this season, more than any, Curbs, when you look at the Central Division, just compared to the National Hockey League, the Blues are the Central has 5 teams that are at least a game above 500. That's more than any other division in hockey. The next closest is the Atlantic Division that have 4 sitting 1 game or more above 500. This Western Conference, to me, is going to be very similar to what the SEC is right now in college football, where you've got everybody that's beating each other up, specifically the Central Division, that at the end you look at it and you say, man, are one of these teams a playoff contender, whether it's Minnesota or St. Louis or Utah? But at the end of the season, you look back and you say, man, look at what they did against the Central Division. Grant looked this up. The Central Division against every other team this year is 19-13-2. But if you take out Colorado and Nashville, who have really stumbled in the early portion of the season at 2-9, if you take those 2 teams out, the Central Division against everybody else is 17-5-2. This seems like it's going to be
really quite impressive, isn't it?
Strength of beating each other up.
And that's not going to continue that way for Colorado or Nashville.
No.
Okay, so I expect they'll have some ground to make up to kind of even that stat out a little bit. But if you go back to a season ago, and this is where the standings really get upended in a massive way. The Edmonton Oilers had such a rough start to the year that when they finally got it going, right, it was later. Little false sense of security. You know, that stat, 73% of the teams at Thanksgiving, that are in a playoff spot. Okay, well, the Blues are in a playoff spot last year and still missed. So they were, one of the 24% that didn't.
Yeah.
If Colorado and Nashville don't get it going real quick, real soon, you could end up seeing that again. And you got to now throw Edmonton, who's had a slow start once again in that mix over in the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
So you look at a scenario here where things are tighter and things are tougher. This Central Division, in my opinion, is still, I think, the toughest, most competitive division in the league. And for the most part, it's been that way every year, like you said, for feels like almost 10, 15 years. What's making it harder this year is Utah finally has a chance to be an NHL team. Old Arizona. So again, remember they're calling a new franchise, and they're off to a good start.
Yeah.
But they've got the backing, they've got the ability now. They don't have some of the mental drain of trying to figure things out. So they have a chance to be a good team. I mean, if I sat there and said, look, the Winnipeg Jets, the Dallas Stars, Utah, Minnesota, St. Louis, Colorado, Nashville, if I gave you 7 teams except the Chicago Blackhawks, you could make a case how each one of those teams could be in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think there's going to be 5 teams in the Central Division in the playoffs this year.
That backs up this point. It's only been like 3 years since the new format started. Non-COVID. Okay, that the Central Division hasn't had 5 teams.
Yeah.
Hasn't had 5 teams.
And when you look at the Pacific Division, I mean, you mentioned Edmonton, slow start. Vancouver's now just getting close to 500. Vegas has been good, but your top 3 teams right now in the Pacific, Calgary, LA, and Seattle, 2 of those 3 teams, okay, but one, I don't think anybody. Calgary talked about blowing it up this offseason. Frankly, did blow it up this offseason.
Listen, that's the great part about this, is if you can have. If you have a good start in October and don't give it back in November, you can really wreak havoc on some of these things. Yep. So, I just, that's the snag with Edmonton slow start, with Nashville slow start, with Colorado slow start, as these other teams come into this mix. Man, they're going to make it a dogfight, and then the mental grind of this chase is going to be even that much more. But yeah, this Central Division is difficult, and that's a hell of a nugget that Grant came up with. Yeah. Versus the rest of the league early on.
Right. Well, and I mean, you just want to know the variable with the Central Division itself. We were looking at this. You look at defense and goaltending, because 4 of the top 10 teams right now in the NHL that are the in the top 10 in terms of goals allowed per game of stingiest. You've got the Winnipeg Jets, the Dallas Stars, the St. Louis Blues, and the Minnesota Wild.
Okay, so 2 teams kind of blew this little nugget out of the water last year. Okay? Hang on, I'm going to pull up the wild card because I want to make sure I get it. They were in the Eastern Conference. Okay? So the Washington Capitals made the playoffs with a goal differential of minus 37.
Yeah.
Right?
We all knew they were frauds.
The New York Islanders made the playoffs with a goal differential, and they finished 3rd in their division with a goal differential of minus 17. And then the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Detroit Red Wings each missed the playoffs with a goal differential of plus 4. Okay, the win. Somebody goes, why the hell are you talking about that? Pretty simple. Go back over the last 20 years, right? And for the most part, your single best predictor of a playoff team is a positive goal differential. You can almost draw the line everywhere, and especially if you get to like plus 5, okay, you're almost in. Okay, and so there'll be a few years where you got a couple other teams that are plus, so it took a little bit more. But you want maybe the single easiest predictor of the weather in the National Hockey League. It ends up being goal differential.
I'll give you another predictor, too, because we talked about this on pregame a couple games ago, I think. But NHL History put this out on Instagram. History of teams making the playoffs based on points through 4 games. 8 teams with 0 points through 4 games since 2005-06. 2 of them made the playoffs, so 25%. What are the chances that you have 2 teams this year, Nashville and Colorado?
Read that stat again.
So there have been 8 teams that start out with 0
since
points.
05-06, so it's the first year out of the season-long lockout. Yeah.
2 of them have made the playoffs.
Only 2.
25%.
That had 0 points through the first 4 games.
Yes, and Nashville and Colorado both had 0 points through 4. So what are the chances that you match,
I think we're going to double it.
Yeah.
Or I think we're going to get to 6.
I do too.
Wait,
too.
how many teams? Only 2 teams? 2 teams? Yeah, we're good. Okay, we'll match it.
Colorado,
It'll
Nashville.
become 4.
Yeah, it's just a crazy nugget.
Edmonton didn't have 4 points through the first 4 games either, did they?
Let me see if they did.
Or did they pull off that? Because Edmonton's another one that falls into that category. Now you might outdo it.
Yeah.
You might outperform what has been a record for the last 20 years.
Water finds its level.
Yeah.
And in the end, and that's why over the last couple of years, even go back and, while the Blues have had some decent starts, they've given it back in the month of November.
Yeah.
That's why that first 2 months is there. Water tends to find its level, and some of these teams that maybe start out of the gate hot, they'll slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
The Oilers had 1 win in their first 4 last year. It was a win over the Predators. You know what else is interesting, too? Talking about Utah. Last year, Arizona didn't have a terrible start to the season.
No, they were a team that we were like, whoa, look out for this squad.
They weren't bad, and I was just looking at their mark. They were like 4 games above 500 going into like late January. They didn't win a game in February. And they gave all of that back in February.
Yep.
So
they're going to be better. They're going to be better.
I still don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, though. That was one of my bold predictions for this season. I know Utah's good. I don't know how good they are.
Alex, it feels like this could be another one of those years where 5 teams come out of the Central Division.
Yeah.
Having said that, I mean, the LA Kings, the Seattle Kraken, Vegas Golden Knights, the Vancouver Canucks, the Edmonton Oilers. It's it shows you how hard it's going to be that wild card team.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
what you're hoping for is some of this parity keeps that point total, or maybe it's only 94 points that get you in, kind of like happened a year ago in the East.
Yeah.
Right? But it's going to be a battle.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'll tell you what, guys, I've talked to plenty of players about this. The mental grind of the regular season nowadays is nowhere near what it used to be.
Yeah.
You used to go into a couple of cities and you knew you could probably have a B game or a C game and still come out and win. It's not possible. And you talk to players, you could lose 3 games in a row and you feel like the world is coming down on you because it could take you a while to chase some other teams.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if the 6th team out of the Central this year, whether that be, St. Louis, Utah, Minnesota, if that team would make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference at the end of the year.
You saw that last year.
Yeah.
Or the team that was just out of it. I think it was the Blues. They would have made it in the Eastern Conference because of where the Washington Capitals were.
Yeah, and that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Two
Two different conferences. Joey talks about it all the time. The way that the Eastern Conference plays versus the way the Western Conference plays. It's why West typically has a better success rate against the Eastern Conference.
Well, the one thing I do think does need to change, and I think this will... It won't surprise me, even if the league does not expand again, but it wouldn't surprise me if you saw 1 or 2 fewer preseason games and the league expand to 84 games. Because the vibe of the players, and with the new CBA coming up, the vibe of the players is, if we're going to play them, you might as well make them count. Veteran players don't want to play a road game, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you do want to see what your prospects can do to some degree. But you also need a balance. Like, how is it? Like, the St. Louis Blues this year will not play in the United Center. Now, the fun part about that...
They won't play at the United Center?
No, we're playing at Wrigley Field.
That's right.
We only play the Blackhawks 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, first off, Blues Blackhawks only 3 times? Are you kidding me?
Highway robbery.
Like, that should never happen. That should never happen. Okay, so... But they come here twice. We go to Wrigley Field on New Year's Eve. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay? How are we playing a divisional opponent only 3 times, but we're playing every team in the Pacific? Well, every team in the Eastern Conference twice. Every team in the Pacific Division 3 times.
Yeah.
If the playoffs are being based off divisional wins first, obviously 1 through 3. And then the playoffs are divisional playoffs, which I am a fan of. You got to play your division more.
It's a good point. It's a really good point.
So how do there's some other teams in the division that'll play, like, we'll play the Blackhawks 3 times, other teams will play them 4.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Bedard, but right now it's the Blackhawks.
Yeah, that
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that makes 0 sense. You're right with the Central Division matchups.
If nothing else, if here's the deal. If you're going to have the playoffs be divisional playoffs and then some conference base because of the wild card, you I believe, got to balance the schedule at least in the conference.
Yeah.
At least
heavier in the West and less in the East.
Meaning if you're in the Central Division, you're playing other Central Division teams the same number of games, and you're playing the Pacific Division teams the same number of games, whether it's 2, 3, whatever it is. Okay? And then the East be the East, and that's just going to be the way the quirks work.
Yeah. With you on that one. Chris Kerber, Grant Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll dive into the junk drawer next here on 101 ESPN.
Open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Brought to you by Fenton Bar and Grill. Best trashed wings in Missouri. Dine in, carry out, 7 days a week.
Over the weekend, I had a lot of strange things happen to me, which I'm like, oh, this is a perfect story for the Junk Drawer. All of these things go to the wayside, though, because of a story that Curb sent to me last night. From the Post-Dispatch. LA Rams want to buy Earth City training site for $1. St. Louis Sports Authority says, no way. First off, props to St. Louis for saying, get the bleep out of here. But $1?
Yeah, well.
Woof.
Okay, listen, I was wondering when this story was going to rear its head again.
Yeah?
The Rams and Kroenke had a clause put in the contract that on like the 29th year of the lease and all the stuff, they could buy that property for $1, and that's what they were given. Obviously, look, the Civic Progress, or whoever, they gave them everything to win to get the Rams here.
For sure.
Okay? This was one of those deals. Now, this came up in the process of when Kroenke was going to move the Rams. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering when it was going to rear its head. Well, the time has finally come. And if anybody that knew that this clause was in there thought for a moment that Kroenke was not going to say, yeah, I'm buying that land for $1. Like, I truly hope that from a city standpoint, from the Sports Authority standpoint, that they have been prepping for this moment for years. If you were not, then clean house and get rid of them all. Because that means you had no... Now, it may not mean you can't do. They're going to have to go to the courts to try and fight this,
right?
And I don't know how they're going to win this if they do, right? Because the cool thing now is to see some of that being used for youth soccer and stuff like that. So, being that it's being used for good causes and for good reason,
yeah,
right? That's absolutely a reason for Stan Kroenke to come in and ruin it,
yeah,
right? Okay, one of the worst people on the planet, okay. Right? I mean, if there is something good, this guy will find a way to ruin it. All right? So,
talk about it with $1, too.
Like, well, no, listen. They negotiated that in there.
That was there the first time.
Sports Authority gave it to them.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't have a problem with them trying to do it. I just hope, like all hell, they can fight it and find a way to get out of here.
Yeah, I would imagine.
There's just got to be enough. There's got to just be enough where this ends.
Yeah.
And it's over.
Wipe the page completely.
You know?
I have to imagine he was trying to purchase it to just flip it and make more money. You buy it for $1, you flip the property for something else to bring in more money.
Oh, my God. Like, yeah. I mean, this
Talk
is
about salt in the wound.
Well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this one, again, there's a lot of people that knew about this. I was wondering when this, it was public. I was just wondering when that time was going to come, and Here it is. Let's hope they find a way to prevent that.
Yeah.
To prevent that. But listen, if you're Stan Kroenke, right, and you sued him, you got the NFL now to pay the city this, and he had to be part of all that. He's going to keep this going any way he possibly can.
Find a way to make it even worse than what it is.
But again, it's his right to say, yeah, I'm going to buy it for $1.
Yeah.
It was the same reason that. But you know the crazy, the stupid. God, this is what drives you nuts about this guy. Shad Khan's got the offer on a team. Stan Kroenke had the right to match. Of course, he waits till the last hour to do so. Same thing with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just you're going to do it. Why do you wait?
Yeah.
Well,
I thought it was the perfect story for the Junk Drawer today.
There's a way. I really hope there's an out, and there's a way that Sports Authority can fight this and find a way.
Absolutely. He's Chris Kerber, Graham Francis. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, you're starting to see these line combinations for the Blues build chemistry. But there's one line that seems like they're still searching for the right mix. We'll discuss that and Zach Bolduc's future with St. Louis this season next year on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you and with my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. Her and her team at Allstate always making sure that you and your family are taken care of. And Tracy, when it comes to car insurance, when it comes to home insurance, prices are going all over the place with the times that we're living right now. But I know for a fact you are always making sure people are saving the proper amount of money with their insurance.
They really are, but we are one of the only companies that we just got a brand new auto product both in Missouri and Illinois. So if you are a household with multiple vehicles, with young drivers in the household, great time to give us a call because we actually took a rate reduction when we brought the product in to the market, and we are saving people money. So great time to call. And then also, if you happen to be somebody who got a new roof on your home, even if it's because of a claim, great time to give us a call. We are one of the only companies that does not do a percentage deductible.
Call Tracy today and find out everything that you need so that her and her team are taking care of you and your family. 314-328-4260. Again, that's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
So we're starting to see these line combinations for the Blues build their chemistry. Alongside Chris Kerber and Grant Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. I say that because the Pavel Buchnevich, Jake Neighbors, and Zach Bolduc line in their last two games have picked up a combined 5 points. Jake Neighbors got 2 points in the Carolina Hurricanes matchup last night, and then previous to that was the game winner that he scored in overtime. I know it wasn't with Pavel Buchnevich, but still. You're seeing Matthew Joseph, Braden Shen, and Dylan Holloway build chemistry. I thought, Curbs, that line drove the offense and drug the Blues back into the fight against the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday. Fourth line has gone through a couple of different combinations, but we came up with a great nickname that I didn't get any credit for, which makes sense. But you put other guys on there.
That's why it'll stick.
Yeah, that's why it's actually going to work. But you always go back to that top line, Curbs. Right now, over these last 3 games, it's been Robert Thomas with Jordan Kyrou and Brandon Saad. But that top line has gone through the ringer. You've seen Braden Shen play the wing. You've seen Zach Bolduc, Dylan Holloway, Jake Neighbors all play with Robert Thomas. But Robert Thomas in the early portion of the season has been on the ice for 8 total goals against. All strengths, power play, penalty kill, even strength. Last season, he was on the ice at this time 6 games in, 5 goals against. He was a positive in the first 6 games of the season last year. Right now, he's sitting at a -5. The other one is you look at Jordan Kyrou, who started off red hot for St. Louis playing with Pavel Buchnevich. He had 6 points and was sitting at a +6. In the last 3 games, he's sitting at as a -2 in those 3 games combined. It still seems as if Drew Bannister is looking for the right combination that can play both in the offensive zone and create scoring chances with Robert Thomas, but also go up against the other team's top lines and shut them down.
It's a fascinating challenge right now. The one thing you have to be careful of when looking at points is you really have to pull power play points and things out of there because that is where it gets different. That said, some of those numbers don't lie. Mm-hmm. And it is different. Okay, I'm going to go back a couple of games ago to the Vegas game. The puck gets dumped in the second period behind the net. Jordan Kyrou skates up, gets the first of the puck, used his speed, got to the puck. Instead of stopping on the puck and making sure he's got control, he kind of does a flyby, drags his stick, and he can't get the puck off the boards. Vegas comes in. If he stops on that puck, and if nothing else, make sure he gets the puck. And, yeah, it takes some courage because you might get hit.
Yeah.
He probably gives his team an extra couple seconds behind him then to get in, and now you've got a forecheck going. Instead, he overskates it. Now he's got a big circle. Vegas goes out the other side, and down on the other end, 15 seconds later, Bolduc's taking a high sticking penalty. Now you're on the penalty kill for the next 2 minutes in a real tense game.
Yeah.
Okay? As you go into overtime, or I'm sorry, not as overtime, as you pull the goaltender, okay? Not enough assuredness with the puck by the same guy. And a couple of 2 or 3 turns over, deflects it over. I say that because then I look at the last game, and this is now I'm going to switch over a little bit, but the chemistry on the power play.
Yeah.
About 3 times, I think it was, the Blues go to try to enter the zone. A quick pass from Thomas. And the problem when you're dropping it back to that far forward is he's coming up with speed. Everybody else is stopped for the most part. So if you're stopped, the guy that's bringing the puck up with the speed is the one that's got the zone. They try a quick deflection play, Thomas, off of Kyrou, and it gets botched 2 or 3 times. The challenge that line has is they just don't play the game the way the other 3 lines are playing.
So bingo.
Okay? And so you're turning the puck over at the lines too much, sometimes exiting the zone, sometimes leaving the zone. You just watch tomorrow night's game against the Winnipeg Jets, who can wreak absolute havoc in front of the net. Undefeated, by the way. Okay? 2-goal comeback last night. They were down by 2 against Pittsburgh and then roared back. Watch how the decisions are made. Look, Jake Neighbors may be a great example. As Jake Neighbors tries to stick on the handle at the blue line, he's going to turn it over. Okay? He doesn't. It gets dumped in. Watch these other lines and watch they dump it in. That top line also has to do that. And when you do that a few times and you get some speed with the speed that they have and you chip it in, if they can get to that line with speed and Kyrou can use the speed, but then he's got to get in and get the puck and hold on to it to start that forecheck. You do that a couple of times, the other team has to adjust to that style of play. You're going to find some of those then playmaking abilities entering the zone are going to open themselves up. And so that's one of the things. Now, individual games, small sample sizes in the game of hockey really give you too much of an opportunity sometimes for unique scenarios to influence the numbers. That's why you do have to look at broader sizes and things as you have. But not enough strong on the puck possession.
Yeah.
And the other thing that line I don't see enough of is support in the offensive zone. Support when they're leaving the zone. They're so spread out. And there was a play in the last game, I think we brought it up with Joe on the air. Robert Thomas had the puck in the corner. 2 guys were on him, and his 2 wingers were just too far away to be helpful in a quick enough time that all of a sudden, out of the zone, it goes the other team, and next thing you know, that line once again is chasing, and it's frustrating. It wears you down. Now, look, they also created a couple of really great scoring opportunities, missing the net on a couple of others. Thomas seems to get about 1 good banner reader a game right now. Okay, so, but there clearly is room for improvement with that line to keep going. They have the offensive skill. It has to come in just sometimes cleaner, more simple puck play. Cleaner, simple, therefore more predictable puck plays.
Yeah. Well, and I give Drew Bannister credit because, I was critical of it over the first few games, Curves, because you just saw the lines juggling up so much and you really felt like they were never able to build something. He's kept those line combinations intact for 2 straight games. Even the Carolina Hurricanes one where they were outshot 19-4 after the first period, didn't touch it. Second period, he opened it up.
That's true. I said this earlier on the fast lane. I'm sorry, on the morning drive. The challenge that you have, and I've seen this happen so many times. You play a team that plays a style like the Hurricanes, the Islanders were doing.
Yeah.
it can take you part of the next game, especially when you're playing every other day like the Blues are. It can take you part of the next game to get back to a different style against the opposition.
Right.
They played a really good style against the Islanders. That style, right, of little extra patience. You got to be more aggressive against the Hurricanes. They're faster with their decision-making and what they do with it. They're not as patient, and they want to get in the zone. And so once they figure that out, that game turned.
He's Chris Kerber, Graham Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. Blues will be back at it tomorrow night, as you heard Kerbs mention, them taking on the Winnipeg Jets. Chance to give the Jets their first loss of the season. Tomorrow night at Enterprise Center, a 7 o'clock puck drop with the First Community Credit Union pregame show beginning at 6. Right here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN. Coming up next, you send us a scenario 314-399-9646 to our Air Comfort Service text line or on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. We will tell you if we are in or out. Coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
Four 399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. As we get to our in or out segment, you send us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out. And Curbs, I'll go to this one because I didn't get to it in the last segment. In or out. Zach Bolduc does not play a game in the spring for the Springfield Thunderbirds this season.
Oh, man.
Looking at the
right now, I'm going to say out.
Yeah.
I just think that depending on scenarios, roster management may not make that possible.
Yeah.
Because if a Texier, for example, gets back in the lineup and they want to move him up at some point in time, if you feel that some other guys you want to take a look at in the top 6 are there, you might have to. So this is not a statement on him at the moment as it is a statement on the current roster situation.
Yeah. So I was looking at the line combinations for those three: Dylan Holloway, Zach Bolduc, Pavel Buchnevich. Pavel Buchnevich, by the way, has not been on the ice for an even strength goal against yet this season. His goal differential even strength is 8-0. But Bolduc, Holloway, and Joseph, in the 3 games that they have played together, they have not been on the ice for an even strength goal against. And they've created offense at even strength. Pavel Buchnevich has gotten 2 goals he's been on the ice for. Dylan Holloway's been on for 2, and then Bolduc's been on for 1.
I do believe Zachary Bolduc, I look at his shot, I look at his ability, I look at the way he skates. He's getting knocked around a little bit, he gets a hit, and then he's like, oh, that guy didn't really move him that much.
Yeah.
And for a guy that wasn't overly physical, I think he's starting to realize he's got size that can work in his favor. And I do believe that he has the attitude in talking to him to do it, and he's getting more and more comfortable. This could be one of those guys where you're going to look at a couple of years going, what do we really have? And then, boom.
Does he...
He has an NHL elite shot.
It's not because he's got the French-Canadian accent, so I'm not just going off of that solely. Reminds you a little of David Perron, though, doesn't he? He's got the shot, the style that they play. Perron was very physical, but I don't remember him being that physical prowess in the early portion.
I see what I can understand the comparison, right? David just had a little bit of the extra gnarly factor.
Yeah.
You know, that made him a little more impactful early on. I think that Bolduc is learning that could be a positive factor for him. I mean, David Perron's first practice was all over Keith Tkachuk in a battle drill. And they asked Keith Tkachuk about it after. He goes, I don't know if he didn't know who I was or didn't care. You know? This is right after he nicknamed Oshie Furnace Face.
Furnace Face, yep.
You know, so that's an interesting one. But no, yep. I do think that Zach Bolduc, I can't say in on that one just because roster management may dictate you don't have a choice.
Makes sense.
I will go to the defensive side. In or out, Philip Broberg ends up on the top pairing with Colton Parayko at some point before the end of the season this year.
I'm out on that one.
Yeah.
Just because of how well they've played with Falk.
Doesn't mean that it won't that you won't have that on some shifts, but in terms of a normal regular pairing, barring injury, I think they've got him where they want him right now. So I'm gonna.
What if you were to amend that and say next season?
Next season, I think there's a very good chance.
Do you think that's the outlook of? Because that's what I think. The hope when you bring a Broberg in is like, hey, this guy becomes a top pairing defenseman for us, and you could use him as a shutdown.
Next season depends on whether or not. There's been another change defensively.
I guess that's true
for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like that one. I would say out on this one as well. You've got 2 guys that have been on the ice for 1 even strength goal against, but as a pair, they have not been on the ice for an even strength goal against. I know that doesn't sound like much when you're jumping on and off the boards, but just like I focused in on Broberg in that New York Islanders game, just watching how he performed. The guy just does everything away from the puck that you don't notice. So I'm going to say out on this because I think he and Falk have just meshed well. Curbs, you got one for us?
In or out, the Dodgers are finding playoff success because Clayton Kershaw isn't there.
Oh, in on that one. They probably wish he was there, but for what their pitching staff has looked like, it's absurd to me how they're winning games as bullpen games. Like, just nonstop. They'll start with one guy. Even the Yamamoto starts have been 4 innings, and then you go to the bullpen. But totally in on this.
I love watching the guy play. I think he's an amazing pitcher, right? He's been good and then bad at different times in the playoffs.
I'm going to say, because he was good in that 2020
he was really good
run, right? But that was a partial season.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah. I don't put an asterisk on the Tampa Bay Lightning winning the Stanley Cup that year.
Well, our boy BK does, but that's fine. 2020 doesn't matter to him.
You had to play. Listen, you play within the environment of what you're at. I mean, that's the way that goes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even that 2020 season, 4.5 ERA, 7.2 ERA in the DS and the CS, respectively. Yeah.
I will say, going back to that 2020
I still think I'd rather have them than not have them.
Yeah.
But
2021 was the only year he didn't pitch. What did the Dodgers do in 2021?
Not having them hasn't really killed them.
Yeah.
Just going back to what you said about 2020, because I find this interesting. I agree. I think that Stanley Cup was probably the most difficult one to win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But also I look at it as kind of an outlier because I don't think the Blues were a team that were going to get beat in the first round by a team like the Vancouver Canucks if the regular season played out normally.
I hear you, Grant, but we don't know that. And
I'm not taking anything away from Tampa.
So the reality of it is you just got to play within the framework of what you play to last as long. And by the way, as that bubble went along, right? So they had a bunch of restaurants that you could order and stuff. And you're in this gated area up there in Edmonton. As teams are getting knocked out, your ability to go find certain things were no longer there because it wasn't beneficial for restaurants and things to be within this and that. So it actually got even harder on the people that went deeper to manage the living situation.
Yeah.
Before. There was a total mind blank going on in that thing too, that to me makes that such a unique challenge as well. I don't take anything away from them, for that scenario. I mean, it is what it is, and you played it, and it's still. I'll tell you what, if the Blues had won the Stanley Cup that year, right? We'd have been calling ourselves back-to-back champions.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree with that one.
Going back to the Dodgers, I also think when you have that many superstars on a team, you play the law of averages. Eventually, you're going to end up in the World Series one of those years.
I know we got to jump. I had a friend send me a text or put it on Facebook. He said, that's what happens when you try to buy a championship. You know my feelings on this? It got to the point now, guys, where I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. Right? I think baseball absolutely needs a better salary structure. Okay. I think the $325 million, and the Guardians are in there at 175 or whatever it is.
Right.
Okay. I mean, one, it shows you it can be done, but I do think it's there. Having said that, right now, if they're playing within the rules and the other owners and everybody has agreed to it, quit griping.
Yep, they had the money for Shohei Ohtani.
Don't gripe, don't bitch. I mean, you're the one.
Yeah, they were able to trade for Mookie Betts and take on the money when Boston wanted to get rid of him.
And it's Boston.
Yeah,
it's Boston that got rid of him.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, Hein Bloom got rid of him, ladies and gentlemen. That should make everyone feel good. All right, let's get to a couple of these on our Air Comfort Service text line from the Waterboy. In or out, goalie goals need to be added to the NHL All-Star Skills Challenge.
Nah, I'm out.
No?
That just means we're watching goalies shoot the puck the length of the ice.
Kind of like, you have to make it a little bit more difficult.
Didn't they put they put a goalie passing thing in there somewhere, didn't they?
Did they?
Some
I got to be 100%. I haven't watched the skills competition in the last few years.
I'm out. Next one.
It's been watered down a little bit. In or out, one player will hit 2 or more home runs in a single game in the World Series.
I'm in.
Yeah.
You usually get your heroes in the World Series or in the Stanley Cup Final or whatever it may be.
I got to tell you, it's been fun watching Shohei Ohtani in the postseason.
I love watching Shohei. If you look back, I love these comparisons that have come out. Everybody's Googling over, Shohei Ohtani and all these at-bats, and then you compare his numbers. It gives you perspective to realize just how great it was to watch Albert Pujols be even better.
Oh, yeah.
At the time. And you have to go back and really look at it, but compare the numbers, and you're like, dang, he was even better in most of these categories. But, man, whether it's Ohtani or Soto or Judge or any of these guys, someone easily can be launching a couple home runs in a game.
Yep. In or out, the fourth quarter for Brady Cook is what's going to be spark a Mizzou run to the playoffs. I'm out on this one, and I don't mean to just be a Mizzou complete just lack of a honk right now, but as great as that was, and don't get me wrong, it was so cool watching Brady Cook drive that team down the field. You got to beat Alabama. And just as much as Mizzou fans are looking at this as it's do or die for Mizzou, Alabama's in the same boat. Now, I know they're flawed. We've been saying that since the start of the season, Grant, but Alabama, you're home. You said it's their homecoming game.
It is.
And you've got Mizzou coming in, and Alabama knows that if they lose that one, there's no playoff. So as great as it would be, I'm out because I don't know how Alabama's going to work out.
I'll simply say in because there's absolutely no consequence for me saying it.
True. Welcome to the loophole of in or out for Kerbs.
I will say, having a game like they had against Auburn and the way they won and Brady Cook coming back from the hospital, that is just the type of momentum you need going into a game up against Alabama.
Yeah, but he's going to be nicked up.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, with Graham Francis, Chris Kerber, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get to the rewind and touch back on the top 5 moves by Doug Armstrong because we got a couple of emails from listeners to my work email, actually, that said we missed some. So we'll get to those in the rewind in about 15 minutes. But coming up next, some areas also in college football that it is just very obvious there is not a superior team. We'll touch on that and Illinois' big win next on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you to talk about Ted Drew's, the famous frozen custard just off of Chippewa, that famous tradition that has been there since 1929. 95 years, 4 generations of families have been serving St. Louisans this famous frozen custard. I loved it on Friday. My wife and I went to a wedding for a friend. Afterwards, we just planned a little date night for ourselves, so we went down and got some Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. I've been doing this with my girls since they were born. Friday nights are Ted Drew's nights when we were able to take them out there. I've been having that tradition in my family since I was young, where my parents take me to Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. There's nothing better. Enjoying the nice fall weather, sitting in the back of the minivan, and just spending time together with family and friends. So make this a family tradition. Make this a friends tradition for you and yours throughout this upcoming year. And they've got plenty of different flavors. Whether you just want to mix and match or go with some of their flavors, like the twisted caramel. It's a frozen custard with caramel, pretzels, and just the right amount of salt. You can order it as a sundae or a concrete. And while you're out there, walk across the parking lot, check out their gift shop, and where you can buy Ted Drew's apparel, souvenirs. You can buy gift cards as well. Just off of Chippewa, Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues, another win, another come-from-behind win this weekend over the Carolina Hurricanes, 4-3 to final. After being down 1-0 in the first period, they clawed their way back, 3 goals in the second to take a 3-1 lead. And though Carolina stormed back to tie it at 3, the Blues, after a goal from Kasperi Kapanen, held on to win it 4-3. They're back in action tomorrow against the undefeated 5-0 Winnipeg Jets here on home ice in St. Louis. Pregame here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN starting at 6, puck drop at 7. And tonight on 101 ESPN, you'll hear the end of the NFL week. Monday Night Football, Ravens in Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. 6:30 pregame and a 7:15 kickoff. And also going on tonight in Monday Night Football, the Cardinals and Chargers from Arizona. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Tuttle throwing on the run, got it complete, got to get out of bounds. I don't think he did, and it doesn't really matter. Luke Altmaier and Illinois with a win at home to snap the Michigan 6-game winning streak in this series, 21-7.
We've gotten a ton of text messages today asking where Tanner's at. And look, Tanner, who was in attendance for that game, Illinois versus Michigan, it was pretty obvious he wasn't going to be in attendance today after that celebration of a 21-7 victory over Michigan. We got text messages that night, Curbs, between Tanner, BK, and I, our show group chat. And the amount of all caps text messages that were coming in from Tanner Hendrickson just showed you the ability to have a good game. But that was a fun one as Illinois knocks off Michigan, surprising some people as they win it 21-7, but more importantly, keeps Illinois in this conversation, much like Mizzou, where they're 6-1 on the season. And this playoff race right now in college football is getting to the point where there is no more superior team. Whether you want to look at Oregon, who's 7-0 and did take down Ohio State, that's probably the best example of the best team in college football, but even they struggled early on in the season. You've got Texas that just loses to Georgia. Alabama's lost their second straight game. Every single conference you can look through and be like, yep, there's a flaw there of what college football looks like. And frankly, we've talked a lot about this. You couldn't have asked for a better season to start with the expansion of playoff football in college than this year, where you have a lot of teams that are just at the top, but not one team that you look like and say they're better than the rest.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
Get used to it. And Howard Richards, who joined us earlier in the show at about 11:15, was talking about the parity in the league or in college football. Mm-hmm. It's real simple. NIL has changed the game. You know, when you can look at how many players are changing teams via the portal, right? I mean, how many did they have? I was reading an article just yesterday about how many they had last year in college basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Several hundred. Okay? When you have that many players changing teams, and especially when you can go from one year to the next and this kind of thing, I think sustainability that we have seen, Nick Saban knew when to get out.
Yeah.
Sustainability that we had seen is going to be much harder than it ever was before.
Yeah, well, we saw the Virginia basketball coaches getting out too. Tony Bennett, he's stepping down and from his position. So you're seeing a lot of them that are going through this challenge.
For the older ones, if you've got enough money, why get into it? Why keep going in this? For the younger ones, I mean, there's a career ahead of you. That said, you're going to see this throughout all of college football because it's going to be hard to maintain certain things because if Alabama was able to maintain it, but there wasn't a whole bunch of guys constantly peeling, constantly leaving like you have now. And basically, there are guys that left. The portal existed. Yeah. There were guys that left, and there were guys that came in. But now when those players can be bought, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think this, call it parity, call it whatever you want. But I frankly, that aspect of it, I think is actually okay. Yeah. Now, what I fail to understand, I can't understand, is how a couple of 2-loss teams are higher in the rankings than some 1-loss teams. Like I realize that Mizzou hasn't won in grand fashion, but to have 2 2-loss teams ahead of you in the rankings makes absolutely no sense to me.
And that's the part about the standings. You've got Alabama, who you're referencing, 5-2, that just lost over the weekend. They're sitting at 15th overall. Now, look, they did drop 8 spots, but you're talking about sitting 15th.
But Mizzou has dropped twice after wins.
And that's after Alabama lost to an unranked opponent.
Exactly. That's the thing. So Mizzou drops twice of a win against Auburn, albeit it was a comeback win, but a win nonetheless. And they've been saying all you got to do is get in. But the other one is Ole Miss. Ole Miss is sitting at 5-2. They didn't move, but they're sitting at 18th. Meanwhile, you've got a 6-1 Illinois team in the Big Ten, which is one of there's only 2 teams in the Big Ten that I think are still undefeated, and then it's Illinois, and they're sitting below them. You've got Mizzou, who's sitting at 6-1. I don't know who's going to be in this playoff because I started the season thinking there was going to be 5 SEC teams, but now that everybody's beating each other up and you've got multiple 2-loss teams, maybe there's 3. Maybe you're starting to see others.
It's going to be even more controversial than any of the playoff pickings have been before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to. And
because now instead of maybe one team getting in because of, you're just a favorable name, you're going to have more.
Yeah. Well, and I was looking at Brett McMurphy for Action News Network, who puts this out. He goes after every weekend and just kind of goes through what he thinks the college football playoffs are going to look like. There are 3 SEC teams that he has in the college football playoffs. You've also got Iowa State, you've got Clemson, you've got Army, you've got BYU, you've got Penn State. I mean, honestly, this thing is wide open right now, which is to the point of what we talked about. Illinois and Mizzou, just as much of a chance as anybody right now because everyone is sitting with 1 or 2 losses.
Yeah, but neither one can lose again.
No.
Because you don't have the cachet that Bama had.
Yeah, well, and with your Illinois, you're taking on Oregon this week.
And I don't know what the hell cachet Ole Miss has to be in there, but all right.
Yeah.
I'll say this, and this might come back to make me look stupid, but I think Illinois has got a real chance against Oregon.
Really?
Who's Oregon played?
Ohio State.
Who's Ohio State played?
Touché, sir.
Nobody.
Touché, sir.
Oregon won by a field goal against Boise State, and I understand Boise State is a good team this season, but who have they played?
Wow. And even
nobody.
Even the first game of the season, they barely beat Idaho. The real games that you've blown them out of the water has been Oregon State, Michigan State. Again, they've progressed as the season's gone along. So, if you're Illinois, you would have rather taken on this team in the 2nd or 3rd week of the season rather than, week 8 that you're going up against them?
If Mizzou goes in and beats Alabama on Saturday, let's just say it's on a game-winning field goal in overtime.
Yeah.
Does Alabama drop out of the top 25?
They should.
They should. You have to. I mean, you're a 3-loss team. I don't know how you stay in the top 25.
I don't know how they're where they are with the 2 losses.
True.
Okay.
I mean, you use the word cachet. That's how.
Don't put normal thinking into this. Put the way it's currently in there into this right now.
I mean,
okay.
If Mizzou takes them down.
Let's say Mizzou takes Alabama down with the scenario of a 1-point game anywhere, or let's say in overtime. Alabama's 15th. Does Mizzou automatically jump back into the top 15?
Automatically?
From 21.
Automatically, no, because then you're going to be talking about, what does K-State, does Boise State, Ole Miss, do these teams pick up wins? It moves them up, but I don't know if it automatically puts you at 15 because then you're looking at Texas A&M, too, who's sitting at 6-1. What do they do this weekend?
Okay, all right. So then it tells you right then and there that Alabama doesn't belong where they are.
Yeah, if A&M loses, so they've got LSU this weekend. If A&M loses, Mizzou beats Alabama, and Ole Miss, who does Ole Miss play this weekend? Look it up. Ole Miss takes on Oklahoma. So let's say Ole Miss beats Oklahoma. Probably a predicted one.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. Okay. Let's go through this one real quick. Mizzou beats Alabama in overtime. Right? Okay. Let's just say Mizzou beats Alabama in any way.
Yeah. Just wins straight up.
Mizzou wins the game. Okay. Ole Miss beats Oklahoma in overtime. Mizzou should jump over Ole Miss.
If they win them no matter what.
If they win no matter what.
I agree with you.
Because if Mizzou can drop places 2 separate times after wins, right, it would have to be.
Yeah.
If that game, even if Ole Miss wins, but only wins by a field goal over Oklahoma, who's not very good this year, and Mizzou beats Alabama, and Alabama is ahead of Ole Miss, then easily Mizzou has to jump over Ole Miss.
Somebody texted in on our Air Comfort Service text line and said, guys, the reason they're this high up is because they beat Georgia. Sure, but they lost to Vanderbilt. They beat Wisconsin. I mean, we could go through this list. They've lost to Tennessee.
Yeah, again, the reason who they beat is one thing. Who they lose to has to matter, too.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I am glad that I'm not somebody that's deciding the polls on the committee right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'd love to be on there because whatever the hell they're smoking or drinking has got to be a hell of a party.
Honestly,
those are the parties, Grant, you want to be
That's a
in
good
on.
point.
That's
That's a good
want
point.
that kind of control.
Chris Kerber, Grant Francis, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll rewind it next year on 101 ESPN.
run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Fun today hanging out with Chris Kerber here on the show. BK and T-Bone will be back with us tomorrow. But if you missed anything from the show today, plenty of Blues conversation, and we talked Mizzou football with Howard Richards. You can check it out on our podcast page afterwards, 101ESPN.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. It's all presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. And Curbs, we've kept it on the track today. I would have lost that bet.
So would I.
We were 2 under, which is surprising. I give that credit to us. That's growth right there.
Yeah, I could have tried harder.
Curbs didn't want to put too much of an effort.
There were a couple times my brain went in a certain direction.
We saved it for the commercial breaks, which, boy, if people could hear the commercial break conversations that are taking place. But one conversation today, Curbs, that got a lot of reaction was us talking about the top 5 moves of Doug Armstrong's career. We both had different lists. We actually had multiple emails from people that sent it into my work email. This one from Brian said, I think you guys missed a couple. He said, Eric Brewer traded to Tampa Bay for a prospect and a third-round draft pick that resulted in Jordan Binnington. And then he also said David Perron being traded to Edmonton for Magnus Payarvi and a second-round pick that turned into Ivan Barbashev.
It's not that we miss those.
Draft picks are tough.
No, yeah, but I counted the Tarasenko one.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, again, I had to pick top 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so which one?
Yeah.
That we did not mention all the good moves that Doug made.
There's been a lot of them. Okay,
but which one for example, out of the 5 that I mentioned, are you taking out for that one? And I even took out the offer sheets to put Schenner in there.
I think the top 10 would still be controversial for people because that's how many moves he's pulled off. So this is the one, though. I got this one, too, that said 2 deals that Doug Armstrong lost because we brought up there's not a whole lot of them that you look at and you say, woof.
Right.
Ian Cole for Robert Bortuzzo.
Wait, he lost that?
That was my immediate reaction. I don't know if you could consider that a loss.
Okay, I would disagree with that one because Robert Bortuzzo ended up playing for your club for 10 years.
Yeah.
And won a Stanley Cup.
And was a big part of that Stanley Cup championship. Now, Ian Cole, all around a better defenseman, played more 25 minutes a game, back-to-back cups. Listen, you've heard me say for a long time, I don't think Ian... Of all the young players that, quote-unquote, have had a shot, I don't think Ian Cole really got a clean shot here. But they moved on, and it worked out great for him. But I don't know that in the end, because of what Robert Bortuzzo brought to this team and the style of play that he had, that toughness that he had, I can't say that the Blues lost that deal.
Feels like one of those win-wins. We were talking about Oshie and Brouwer, how it was a win-win for both sides.
Yes.
That's a Cole Bortuzzo thing.
In the end, that's a win-win.
And then the other one they said was the Blues traded a second and a fifth-round pick for Jordan Leopold. You guys know who those 2 second and third round or fifth round picks turned into? Because of course the hockey tree. Okay. Justin Bailey and Anthony Florentino.
Okay, so the guy's got a sense of humor is what you're saying.
And guess how many playoff series Jordan Leopold was a part of with the Blues?
0. 2?
Yeah.
2?
2012, 2013 when they acquired him. He played in that postseason, and the next year he played in the postseason for him.
I think if I go, we'll have to save it for another time, but in terms of the least favorite moves, right now, so far for me, it's the Barbashev trade.
Really?
Yep.
That's the one that...
So far right now, and I know it's maybe because it's the most recent. There's a couple others, like we can debate a couple of signings and have some great debates on that and some great arguments. We can put a lot of that in there. I can argue the Bishop one all day long, right? But clearly, I don't think that you can really say outside of the Bishop one. Now, we'll wait and see how these other draft picks come out in terms of the O'Reilly trades and the Tarasenko trades and things like that. Okay, so those jury's still out on that one. But to this point, right, I'm not sure you can pick many outside the Bishop one where you go, one got away.
It's just impressive that we're 6 games in to a season, and I understand there's some excitement when you got a point streak and when you have a highlight reel goal like Dylan Holloway, but we've spent that entire segment, could have made a top 10 list. And the offer sheet guys, at least for both of us, were already into the top 5.
Well, I told you it was. It's recency bias.
Totally.
It's recency bias, but it's also just the jam and the thought process and everything that really went behind something that is not typically used.
It's recency bias, but it does show you how impactful that those two players have been 6 games into a season and where things were at the 2 previous seasons.
Yeah. Well, it's followed up on it.
Yeah.
Hey, next time, write this down for when Curbs is in. Let's do a top 5 all-time quotes from Doug Armstrong.
Oh, well, I already have 3 of them.
I sent him a text. I sent him a text after the one about he wouldn't have...
would have done that to his mother?
Would have done... Like I said, I wish I had been writing these things down for 10 years. I'd have had a book.
Yeah. You've got the mother one. You've got the jam the knife into the brain. Yeah, there's plenty of them with Doug Armstrong. Curbs, appreciate you filling in for us today.
You got it.
We'll hear Voice of the Blues tomorrow night against the Winnipeg Jets, which we will have the First Community Credit Union pregame starting at 6. Big thanks to Graham Francis as well. I'm Alex Ferrario. The Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.